Meeting, please come to order. Barbara, please call the roll.
We have Commissioners Berard, Fleming, Funderburk, Levine, and Noonan present.
This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. I have no opening remarks. Madam General Manager.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to ask Mike to briefly review what went on during the heat wave yesterday.
So yesterday we did see record temperatures. Burbank at 111 and Lancaster and Palm Springs all set records, and it was a very, very hot day. So yesterday we set an all-time peak for June, 6,080 megawatts. The last record was on June 20th, coincidentally, the same day, but in 2008, that was 6,053 megawatts. Now, what made this really challenging yesterday was the uncertainty of Southern California Gas Company being able to supply gas to our local generating plants. Very early in the morning, they were on a gas watch. They went to a gas curtailment notice at about 4 a.m., but they retracted that and went back to a gas curtailment watch, which is a lower status. But what we did is we configured our system such that we could really block load our in-basin generation so that we didn't create fluctuations on the gas company. And we used our external system, our transmission system, our hydro, our coal facilities to take the ramp that was necessary to meet our peak load. And we believe this really helped the gas company tremendously. We also implemented our demand response program. You'll hear a little bit more about that today. But we implemented about 70 megawatts of reduction. Engineers are going to analyze what we actually got so we can use it as a learning experience for the next time around. We also had a massive public communication campaign. We were first out of the gate. We had a news on Wednesday and a press release Thursday. Others started picking it up on Friday and all through the weekend, and we had several opportunities on Monday early in the morning to get the word out that conservation was critical yesterday. As the heat built through the day, that impacts our circuits and our transformers. They start to get overloaded. And so by midnight of last night, we had about 12,000 customers out. We're down to about 9,000 customers out. We went to a level 1 status, which means we can bring more crews in and more overtime to restore power. And to give you some context, in 2007, when we had that massive heat storm, before we made investments in our system, we had 60,000 customers out. We don't want any customers out, but these numbers are actually quite good. So today we expect about a 5,500 load, far lower than yesterday. We are on no gas curtailment watch at all today, and temperatures have significantly dropped. So today should be, well, smooth sailing.
Well, congratulations. That's a great report. What does this bode for other similarly hot days once Navajo is offline and in the months of July and August?
So really, this means extensive planning and communication to think through what could happen from a load perspective, but what could happen from a gas supply perspective and how best we configure our systems. So communicating with the gas company, there was multiple rounds all the way through the night, communicating with the CalISO, LADWP, and the gas company to try to predict what could happen for that day. And so that will continue going on throughout the summer. Even with our divestment of Navajo, which we hope we can announce very, very soon, that plant will still be there for the course of the summer. So it'll be available into the marketplace, and that will be helpful for the entire marketplace moving forward.
Thank you. Questions, comments? We will move comments from commissioners on agendized items and requests from commissioners relating to departmental operations.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments. One, just wanted to thank the communications and customer service staff. In between the last meeting and this meeting, I went to customer service Saturdays and was very impressed by the professionalism of the staff. I went to all 4 of them, and I have now visited every DWP customer service center location in the city, and I can't tell you how Marcy, how important having people who smile all the time, because I went to all of these without my badge, so I was just another person, although they must have wondered, who this, tall guy was wearing short red shorts, walking into the customer service.
Thank you for that visual, sir.
I'll leave that one alone.
On advice of counsel, you might want to limit that.
It was nice to be greeted. It was nice to be greeted by people who didn't know who I was, but who just open arms and that goes from the people behind the teller windows to the security staff, who always had a smile, and they had their hand by the ready, if I was going to do something interesting, and the communication staff that we're sending out to the customer service Saturdays, I think is great. I look forward to seeing some DWP pop-ups, not just a regular pop-up. I'm a big fan of getting our name out there and getting it out there in a positive way. But I think that those things have been great. I think we should continue to support them. The only thing that I want to make sure of that we pay attention to, and as I know that staff is overwhelmed by a lot of the mandates that we're under in both the reform context and the rate context, and that is to make sure that these centers, that we have some type of protocols for making sure that all centers have a decent aesthetic. They don't have to be works of art, but that they're kept up and kept clean. But the people, who I think is that's our biggest asset. The people were great across that's across the board. The other thing, about a year ago, I did ask for a moment of silence for the people who died in the Charleston massacre, and the 9 people, and I want to ask for a moment of silence very briefly for the souls that we lost in Orlando, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other Commissioner comments? I think we have 3 public comment cards, Barbara.
Yes. The first speaker is Kent Minalt.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have a general comment, but I also want to comment on the equity indicators that's coming up later. I wonder if I might have 2.5 minutes instead of the usual 2.
You may have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Kent Minalt. I'm campaign organizer with the Sierra Club, and during the hearings about the rate increase, I very much appreciated comments from General Manager Marcy Edwards about the utilities commitment to equity, and also comments from Commissioner Funderburk to the same effect on April 19th. Very well put. There's an area I'm talking about today where LADWP has spent generously in higher income areas while leaving out low income neighborhoods altogether. I mean publicly accessible electric car charging infrastructure. Now, I live in Sherman Oaks, and DWP has provided 3 top quality quick chargers within 5 minutes of my house. I like the one across from Trader Joe's at Riverside and Hazeltine. It's great to come back out with my groceries and find my car all charged up for free. But when I go down to Watts to visit my friend Mike Chatham, who sits with me on the Repower LA Coalition, and he'll speak in a minute, there are no chargers for miles. Check the PlugShare website for confirmation. The situation is the same in Boyle Heights and Pacoima and other struggling neighborhoods. Now, you might argue nobody in those neighborhoods has electric cars, but I think that would miss the point. Few people in my neighborhood had them back when you installed our chargers. I think they were clearly meant to stimulate electric vehicle adoption, according to the policy stated on your Charge Up LA website. Well, why not stimulate electric driving in Watts? Right now, electric cars are coming off their leases and entering the used car markets, and they're quite affordable. State Air Quality has the Plus Up program, which lets low-income residents of LA get a substantial rebate for junking old clunkers and getting an electric, even a used one. But it's hard to imagine residents of Watts taking advantage of this generosity without a publicly accessible charging infrastructure. Fairness and equity would seem to require the same opportunity for Mike and his neighbors that you've given to me and mine. Now, Mike and I are organizing an electric drive and ride event in Watts as part of the National Drive Electric Week, September 10th through 18th. Now, this will help residents get the feel of electric cars and also understand all the rebates and incentives they can use to make electric driving an incredibly good deal. But it won't be a good deal if there's no place to charge them up. Tenants and apartment dwellers will need publicly accessible chargers to make electric driving feasible. My ask, how soon do you think LADWP could install 3 or 4 of those lovely quick chargers in the Watts area and maybe follow it up with some in East LA and Pacoima? Because after that, you could list those chargers in the equity indicators Commissioner Funderburk is asking us for, and actually my colleagues on Repower LA and the Sierra Club are asking for as well. And could you get them up before National Drive Electric Week when we're holding our event at Ted Watkins Park? It would help it to be successful. And by the way, you're all invited. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Augustin Cabrera.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Agustin Cabrera. I'm with the LA Alliance for a New Economy and Repower LA community organizer. Our coalition is a diverse citywide coalition of environmental groups, small businesses, community-based organizations that advocate for clean energy and energy investment here at the department, as well as strengthening the utility pre-craft training program. So we feel the best way for customers to keep their bills stable is benefiting from DWP's energy efficiency, solar and low income discount programs. We want to see the DWP adopt equity indicators to help community and policymakers evaluate how well new and existing programs are benefiting all Angelenos. Equity indicators can effectively measure how the department investments affect low income ratepayers accessible to the public. The data would allow ratepayers a process to raise concern around any gaps who is benefiting from the programs. Last year, we researched the disparity of solar investment in Los Angeles. What we found was that South Los Angeles is receiving $2.89 per capita, while West LA is receiving $45 per capita. 45% of Watts residents are homeowners, yet the community receives only 37 cents per capita in solar rebates. Equity indicators could prove an annual review of customer enrollment in solar or low-income programs across these neighborhoods to see if lower-income ratepayers are getting sufficient access. The Repower LA Coalition wants to ensure that local solar programs are accessible and affordable to struggling customers across the city, especially in the light of these extreme heat days, and see the development of a community solar program as critical to addressing the current inequities. Regular reporting is the only way to ensure that the department's programs and investments are benefiting all Angelenos. I want to thank you for your time and your commitment to clean energy and equitable programs. We look forward to hearing the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Laura Moredia.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Laura Moreira, and I'm the Research Director at Scope, and we are a partner organization of the Repower LA Coalition. And we, together with our coalition members and the Department of Water and Power, are working to advance issues of equity, the environment, and good jobs. And each of these issues are very important to the community that we work with and advocate for in South Los Angeles. And so today I'd really just like to thank the board for their leadership and action on the issue of equity and the development of equity indicators. Against the backdrop of our changing climate and the rising utility rates, and also just the general transformation of the energy and utility sector, we really see that the needs and concerns of our city's most disadvantaged residents must be taken into account. And so we're hopeful that the use of these indicators will help measure the effectiveness of successful programs that are already in place, including energy efficiency programs that many of our members and residents in South LA have taken advantage of, along with solar programs, which we really see a need for more investment and equity in, and also other low-income programs and new emerging technology and the deployment of technologies, as my other partner in the coalition mentioned. And so we're really hopeful that these measures will help advance equity and guide the department in a direction of truly serving all the residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have one more speaker card.
Okay.
Mike Chatham.
Good morning. My name is Mike Chatham, for the record, and I chair the Community Legal Research Center. And today, come to our attention that we should address you as well as inform you and invite you to help us out with our concerns in the city of Watts. Our Better Watts initiative statement is clear. We believe that there's environmental racism in Watts. And Watts is a community with a strong and unique identity. Its residents are part of a rich history that includes progressive activism, a vivid culture, and countless contributions that have shaped the strong narrative that is in Los Angeles. But along with that, the rich culture and political history there is an ignored story. Mainly, it is the story of the staggering environmental health and justice problems facing the community. With over 41,000 residents packed into 2.5 square miles, Watts is one of the most densest communities in the city of Los Angeles. It is also one of the youngest. The largest portion of 28% of Watts residents are children aged 10 years and under, and approximately half of all residents are minors aged 17 or younger. That is why the presence and scale of toxic substance in Watts are cause for alarm. The Cal EPA ranks several Watts located census tracts in the top 5% of the most pollution burdened and vulnerable communities in the state. Some of its neighbors, and also ranking in the 95th cleanup percentile, meaning that the number and type of cleanup toxic sites are higher than in 95% of all of California's census tracts. Furthermore, Watts neighborhoods are plagued with unhealthy air, ranked in California's worst 15% of modeled air concentration of toxic chemicals releases. It is no wonder Watts residents have the lowest life expectancy of any other community in the state, nearly 12 years lower than the residents of nearby Brentwood. Our concern is to end harm, honor need, and inform the people of what we want in our community today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was the last speaker card.
Comments from ratepayer advocate.
The office has comments on item 24, which can briefly be stated as in support and perhaps not need further comment unless there are questions, as is always our pleasure to take during any of the board's discussions. I think we also have a few brief comments on 30D.
Great, thank you. Discussion with neighborhood council representatives on any neighborhood council resolution or community impact statement filed with the city clerk, which relate to any agenda item listed or being considered on this agenda for the Water and Power Board.
There were no community impact statements or formal positions were filed by any neighborhood councils on the items on today's agenda.
Okay, I have requests to defer items 23 and 28. Is there a motion to defer those items?
I'll move.
Second, those in favor?
Aye.
They are deferred. Approval of the minutes of May 17th and June 7th. Is there any need to separate these two votes? Is there a motion to approve both sets of minutes?
So moved.
Second, those in favor?
Aye.
They are approved. I have a request to pull item 10 from the consent calendar, Are there any other items on the consent calendar which are between items 6 through 22, which any commissioners would like removed from the consent calendar?
19.
I have a quick question about item 17, and I just want to make a comment about number 8. I'm glad that staff was able to address this item request from the last board meeting, and it seems that a compromise was made to increase additional vendors to bid on this item, and I was glad to see such progress made in such limited time.
So, but no need to remove it from the consent calendar. Other removals?
22, please.
Okay, is there a motion to approve items 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 20, and 21?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
We go to item 10.
So item 10 is a emergency, let me have Reggie pull up the presentation. Let me walk over and get it so I can move the slides. So in the introduction, Mike talked quite a bit about yesterday with the heat wave we had yesterday and the responses with Aliso Canyon. What this program is, if we look at, just brief on Aliso Canyon, it's the only natural gas storage facility. There could be curtailments. Just talks about how Aliso Canyon serves our 4 generating stations. We are taking all possible steps, and this includes on the customer side as well, to reduce the usage and to ensure that we can make it through any of these very hot days. So as you can see here, we're talking about ramping up our demand response program, and we're developing the energy load reduction plan for the summer 2016. This program is a 3-month emergency program. And if you look at the technical part of this, and Mike will correct me if I go off the rails. So this is our load. This is the time of day down here. You can see what our load, and when we get in basically to 3 to 5 p.m., that's when we're at the absolute peak. So that's when we're using all of our generation facilities, both in and out of basin, and it's the super critical time. This is really a combination of residential load starting to go up and commercial load starting to go down, and I'll show you specifically for that. This is actually yesterday, and from 3 to 5 p.m. it's about an additional 200 megawatts of additional load, and this is the top stuff that the power system is using with it's generally with hydro at that time, and we're running all of our units at the peak. We have to remember, and this is from the rates, customer outages cost a lot of money. Yesterday when I was in the valley, it was 116 degrees, at least by my car temperature sensor. If we have any outages, you can see here in the medium and large, it's 13,000 to 17,000. Even a 1-minute outage is generally 13,000 for a medium and large commercial customer. On a small commercial customer, it's a smaller number, 412 to 647. But just think about that for a small mom and pop store that's selling, selling how many sodas, how many sandwiches does it take just for that outage. So it's very important that we try to mitigate these losses or mitigate the outages. This now is the same chart, but what this shows in the blue, that's the load of our commercial customers. So as you would expect, it ramps up in the morning, you get to about noon, 1 o'clock, they're at the peak, and then it starts coming down. What we're trying to do in this program is shift them forward 2 hours. So if you look at the green line, that's the same line, but we've shifted everything forward. It saves about 1,000 megawatts. This would be if all of our customers did it. All of our customers aren't going to do it, but that would save 1,000 megawatts right at the peak. So what we've done, here's the same picture that we were looking at earlier. If just 20% of our customers do it, the blue line is the original, The red line would be what it would be with a shift. It flattens out that load. It makes it easier for the power system to meet all of those loads to ensure we're not turning anybody off when it's 116 degrees out in the valley. So what is this program? It is an incentive amount of $10 per kW per month. We've already done a lot of work we've met with VICA, we've met with Central City Association, LA Chamber of Commerce, who am I leaving out? The Premier Accounts, we just had a meeting with them this week. So all of our large customers, we've made them aware of this, and what we're trying to have them do is that reduce their usage between 3 and 5 o'clock. And that peak is, if they reduce that usage at 3 and 5, we're going to pay them $10 per kW. That will help us to get through these very hot days. I mean, again, the questions that were when it's hot in August, this is a program that we're doing that will help us to reduce down that peak. The implementation, again, we're looking for approval today for this contracting authority, and it will be a bill credit, essentially like a rebate program that we will have. I'm not going to go through all the other ones, but just to show, if you look at, this is just a movie studio, you can see there, if they shifted 2 hours forward, they could save $4,200. And hotels, not as much. Large university, again, $23,000. So this is a program, it's an emergency program. We've done it as fast as we can. We'd like to do it to all of our customers, but it's really for customers, A3 customers that have automatic metering infrastructure where we can get that interval data.
I do want to make a brief comment. We are, to my knowledge, the only people that have come up with this idea. A lot of people have demand response programs where they pay or otherwise incentivize customers to drop their load. We're actually trying to help meet the needs of the business community by keeping them supplied with electricity, but shifting the time of their operation. So for those that are able to come in earlier and leave earlier, there is a substantial benefit to us, both financial and in keeping the lights on. And so that's the basis for this particular program. We'll use this to collect a lot of data on, who's able to do it, to what extent is it a valuable tool, the overall cost benefit issues. But right now, it's a great Aliso Canyon management tool, and we would appreciate your support.
I just want to chime in and say kudos to Jeff. I mean, this is a very, very creative, important, innovative, critically valuable suggestion. And the fact that DWP and really you have come up with it is very impressive.
I wanted to not just echo that, but having spent most of my time and work hours with the manufacturing industry in California, and having shepherded them through the energy crisis in 99, 2000, 2001, I saw firsthand that DWP is number one. I mean, DWP blew everybody's shorts off when compared to the other utilities, the IOUs, and I think that it's programs like this that are distinguished DWP, and I hope that we let the world know, because I think that this is what's going to bring DWP back to being number one, because we all know where we are. We all know what our staff is capable of doing. They've shown it under stress, the earthquake, the energy crisis, but seeing how DWP responded in the last energy crisis, and seeing this, I'm blown away, because not just because my clients appreciate it outside of this, but I just say continue to let the business community know. I'll do whatever I can to get the word out myself and work with staff. I know that this has been one of the many things that you've been working on, that you were trying to, that you couldn't explain to me, General Manager Edwards, in terms of the staff being overwhelmed. But this will pay off big time, and we can't do a lot of the things if we don't have customers whose needs that we're meeting. So, like I said, if you need any help with the manufacturing community in particular. I know there are not a lot left in LA. That's gone down a lot. Let me know and keep up the great work.
Other comments, questions? Is there a motion? Oh, Commissioner Barad.
I want to echo my colleagues. This is a very creative program, and I hope this will continue, not just be for these 3 months. I just wanted to ask you a question about, besides meeting with those various business groups, how are you publicizing this opportunity?
And I don't know if Joe Romalo is here. I mean, we're working mainly because it's limited to, I think, about 1,500 A3 customers. It's really kind of the 90-10 rule. It's just our very large customers. We've gone through premier accounts. They're talking to all the customers, going out and trying to sell it. Right now, as of today, I was told, I think we estimate about 500 customers are going to take it, which is significant. That's one of these big customers, that's going to help us. And again, Commissioner Levine, this goes back to the main mission for DWP is to ensure we're not having a power outage. I mean, literally, that's what I was thinking yesterday driving home at 116. Turning the power off for somebody because we don't have the resources is just something we all work to make sure we don't do, because that's our job, is to do.
Yeah, we reduce the risk of power outages.
Reduce the risk, right, yeah.
So are you having a kind of a targeted outreach to the movie industry and colleges and universities?
All of our A3 customers that are equipped with automatic meter reading infrastructure, that's the ones we can do. We wish we could do more, but again, it's a 3-month fast program that we're putting together. So it's limited to those 1,500. And account management, we had the meeting with them, like I said, that they're going out, all of our account managers are going out to those customers specifically.
Now, do you have any plans that if you see that this is working, that you would then move it over to the customer side as well at some point?
I think that's part of what we want to look at is what happens with the load reduction. Is it something, Mike will talk about his demand response programs as well. We're going to look and see how does this, how successful are we with this program?
Because this could really be very helpful to those areas where the temperatures are really, high.
And we'll be talking more about strategies, but this is why automatic meters deployed throughout our entire basin is so important, because these are the types of programs that those meters will help allow us to foster through residential or small commercial, et cetera. So that's a very important discussion that we'll be having later on this year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimously approved. Appropriately.
Appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Noonan, 17.
So I actually have a few questions, and they're fairly broad in nature. So one of my first questions is, I know former Commissioner Parfrey made the request for the department to look into using recyclable paper. I don't know if that was anything that eventually was explored, and have we made a judgment as to whether or not there's a huge delta in price using recyclable paper versus what's being ordered or requested in this agendized item?
Commissioner, my name is Joe Reynoso. I administer the contract. First of all, I need to ask for your clarification. When you say to use recyclable paper, are you saying, for my understanding, are you asking us if our paper is currently being recycled, or are we purchasing recycled? Because to my understanding, both scenarios are true.
It's a contract for copy paper.
Yes,
so we're talking about purchasing copy paper, and to what extent do we purchase copy paper that's made out of recyclable materials now? Do we have a program? Are there limitations? If you'll excuse me for articulating.
Right.
No, thank you, Ms. Edwards. Currently, the contract that we use is for the purchase of 30% recycled paper, of which 30% is post-consumer. That is part of the city's contract when they went out to solicit the bid. So that's what we are receiving in-house, and that's what we are purchasing.
And what is the difference, out of curiosity, what's the difference in price of purchasing more environmentally friendly recyclable paper versus the 70% the other paper that we're buying?
Again, my understanding was that the Office of Sustainability was looking at and exploring alternative papers, one of which is made with wheat byproducts. However, the cost of that program was about 48% more higher than what we are currently getting under the current copier paper contract. So they are exploring at the cost at the same time, sustainability of the different types of paper to purchase.
And now, another thing that wasn't very clear when I was reading this agendized item, does this paper relate to billing? And I know that right now we're considering switching from sending bills out every other month to monthly. And how is that going to affect the cost of our paper?
I believe this is just piggyback on a copy paper only contract with the balance of the city. The high-speed printers and that whole bill function is in a separate box.
I'd be curious, just on a side, to know how that's going to affect our costs if we do switch to monthly billing. And I also would like an update as to learn how many customers are taking advantage of paying online, so that we can make an effort to reduce the waste of
We
paper.
had a big push on for paperless billing. Do you recall what the percentage is now?
Our goal is to get about 12.5% online. Is that about 12.5% are paperless billing.
And we continue to push and advocate and provide opportunities. We even had an incentive program if you would switch to paperless billing. The monthly billing will be sort of a step function. We'll likely go to budget billing first, which is take your whole bill for the year, segment it into 12 equivalent pieces. That gives predictability for the customer over what their bill is. It also provides it monthly, so it's not a big bite. But it doesn't require that we suddenly are doubling up on our meter readers, as an example. Because when you go to full monthly billing, we want to do it in conjunction with as much automated metering as possible so that you don't have this staffing spike to support it.
And then my last question is, having served on this board for the years that I have, there's always been an issue about record keeping, trying to track documents, and I had suggested a while ago using a company like DocuSource, or a company that even if we do it ourselves, just scanning documents and keeping them filed in an organized fashion versus printing out these documents and those being lost. So I bring this up because I do think it ties into the issue of perhaps keeping documents available online and scanned versus just making tons of paper copies and having
Why
to
don't I
pass
get
them.
your report back on our current systems and forecasted plans?
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Are we ready for a vote? Is there a motion?
Move.
Second? Those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Commissioner Fleming, item 19.
Yeah, I just wanted a presentation on it.
So we have some issues with a lot of turnover and pending turnover at the upper levels of management, to where the example cited in the report is essentially every member of the power system executive management level could essentially retire. And several have over the last year. Several are very new to that group, and they're coming in at a time when they can go out the door. We are having some challenges providing developmental time to our newer engineers that are moving into the management section. And right now we're just talking about the engineers as if this could be expanded. And getting the projects done and learning new jobs as some of the managers are coming into the projects and coming into the management supervisory realm. So the entire Southern California public power community is facing these challenges as well. So there's an organization called MFP Connect, which was created by the American Public Power Association, because again, it's not just Southern California, it's not just LA, it is across the nation, that's created a way to bring on retired executives in the utility arena, from the utility industry, and provide mentoring services to newer managers and supervisors to help them develop what sometimes are referred to as those soft skills. They come in with tremendous technical skills at that area, but you have to become a good manager, start learning some of those other skills, again, managing and motivating employees, making public presentations, answering questions in a crowded community presentation, learning to prioritize some of those responses, how you get back the information to the public, how you make a presentation to an elected body. Those aren't things that you learn mostly until you start getting to that actual supervisory time. We do provide some classes that are developmental, but really have to be going through that and doing that at the time. And so we've signed through SCAPA. SCAPA has actually already contracted with MFP Connect to provide these services for several of the members who are interested, and we'd like to join with that effort so that we can have mentors come in on a 1 or 2 day a week duration and provide essentially maybe once a week to a staff member all those learning skills, those mentoring skills to develop good managers so that they can manage projects, people, and everything else that might come into play.
There's two other advantages to this I just want to make mention of. One is because of our civil service system, people come up in these narrow silos. In smaller agencies, they're moving all around, so they pick up a lot more in terms on the soft skill side that Dave articulates. Here, we can have people get fairly high in the organization and yet have not had the exposure or the experience in the list of tasks and duties that Dave outlined. So it's more advantageous to us. The second is majority of the retired executives we know. We know their skill sets, we know their abilities, we know who knows how to make a good presentation or who does extremely well in the public venue or the policy venue. And so we can pick and choose people who have the skill sets we need to mentor particular individuals. This is only one part of the overall succession planning issue, but again, it's in part a Band-Aid because we have such turnover. You know, we went through 3 power system heads in a year. You know, Mike has been thrust into greatness here and is doing a fabulous job, but there's only so much Mike to go around, and I need some more experienced help to help develop the people, particularly in that level of the power system, so that they can be ready.
Right, so I don't have a problem with any of that. In fact, it's terrific. I guess one of my questions would be, though, given the size of this department, should we not have a better internal system for doing this and starting earlier with mentoring? What I'm a little concerned about things like this, and I get the value, so I'm fine with it, and it's not a whole hell of a lot of money, I guess, but we are training people coming up toward, we're training people, giving them amazing skills, coming up toward the end for some of these folks, and then they're taking those great skills and all that knowledge, and they're the ones walking out the door 24 months after we've provided all this great training. So one of my questions, and we can come back and do this at some other point, but what are we doing about mentoring folks 1 level down, 2 levels down, 3 levels down, so that they are picking up these skills earlier on in their careers here at the department? They're able to utilize those skills then for a number of years, as opposed to training people at the capstone, basically.
Well, believe me, at the top now, we have people who historically would have sat in the job below them for 10 years. I mean, while Mike's entire senior team is at retirement age, the next level down and the next level down, the ones we're actually focused on mentoring aren't in that, so they're not going to necessarily be walking out the door. But as Dave outlined, we do have a series of programs, but there are things that you just need to learn that a human resources professional can't necessarily teach you. How to write a power system board report, how to sit in front of this body and interpret what they want and then make decisions on that information. It's just very experiential at that level, so it's just trying to backstop that portion.
Right. No, I get that. But we also, given our size, we have the largest pool of retirees of anybody. So we're in some ways going out to ask someone to provide us with a really great list of retirees to give our current employees, current senior managers, guidance and insight when we ourselves already know some of the greatest retirees out there because they were here. So they weren't just at another agency, in fact, they were here. So what I'd be curious about is, can we develop a system that, one, mentors folks at second and third tiers within the department so that we don't come up against these emergencies so often, right? These last minute kind of stopgap measures. But also, couldn't we find a way to utilize our retirees, the terrific retirees who leave here with so many skills and talents, who could also come back and do some of this, perhaps at less of a cost than going out to another agency?
Potentially. We would have to research if there's any IRS limitations on using retirees, because there's a lot of changes in the law the last couple of years that I'm not conversant in. But there is certainly that potential. Mike, you wanted to say something?
For new managers, we really did put together a tremendous training program to break the silos, to work on communication skills, to develop the interpersonal skills. And so that's for our new managers. And what we're trying to do now in Power is we're taking that model of breaking the silos and getting them into training, and we're doing it for that next tier. Those new supervisors are stepping into supervisor groups. How do we get them ready for management? And I think that's what you're addressing, that second tier down, to get them ready to step up. So we're building that model right now. I've got some senior staff that are trying to figure out, the best training and how do we pull that together. Because really having a formalized training program to put people through is the most effective way to get them started, and the mentoring comes in to just really polish the rough edges out. So I'm hoping that within the next 6 months to 8 months, we'll be able to launch something like that for that next tier down.
So I guess what I'm fine moving this forward. But what I would ask is, and we don't have to do it if my fellow commissioners aren't that interested, but I'd love an offline briefing then on what we're doing about mentoring, skills building internally, both on Power, and I assume Marty's having to do this at Water as well. If we could do it for both silos, I think that'd be terrifically helpful.
Okay.
I'd like to just add one thing, and it kind of ties back to the whole, and I use DocuSource, not to just throw out the brand name, but that's just the company that I'm familiar with. But one thing that I've heard by many, many people on staff is that there just has not been accurate record keeping. And so there are people that are retired that get phone calls from current employees because they're the only ones who have information about a certain project, and there's no information here available to the current employees. And I think that has to change. Not only seeing if we can bring these retirees back to have them document the information that only, I guess, they've known, they've saved, their personal notes. But I do think there should be a mechanism where we build on top of a foundation of knowledge that is available to, the new workforce that will be coming into the department.
Camden?
We would support this item as you do, and note, in addition, there are two factors that make an outside service particularly valuable here, and that is the qualities you need to be promoted are sometimes not the qualities you need once you get promoted. And the people you may trust and turn to in the course of your career are no longer the ones that can help you with your next developmental step. So having someone who's not in the situation to talk through a scenario with, who is actually not interested in the current culture or preserving it, would actually be quite valuable. And I commend you for a more holistic view of the succession planning at issue, but I think with the new governance that's before council now and the voters this fall, that you're going to see rather larger structural opportunities to address the issues you're raising. One of the things that concerns us is the MEA class as a whole continues to shrink. It used to be 400, it's now down to 250. And that bodes ill for the whole turnover process in many ways. But the more control the board has and self-determination the department has, the more you can hope to kind of direct this large ship a few degrees at a time.
Is there a motion?
I had a
Commissioner Thunderbird.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Fleming, for bringing this up, because I had some separate comments on it. I think that Commissioner Fleming's comments, I want to echo, and I would like to be a part of whatever the internal briefing that takes place. I think that one of the things that I've come to learn over the past 3 years is that DWP's culture is unique. It's special. The people that we have here, all of them, almost across the board, adopt that culture. But that culture is different in some ways than what's external to DWP, because DWP is kind of operating in its own world, and also just like other public utilities, trying to do equity in a very, very broad sense. And I think that the agency's to be commended for that. However, I think that when it comes to pipelining and introducing our workforce, I think there's got to be some measurable metrics or measurements for the pipelining, and not just, oh, that sounds good, we're going to do it, but there has to be something that future boards can hold staff accountable for. And so best practices as it relates to this would be important for, I think, the future boards to know about. In looking at the workforce myself, I think that we have an incredibly thriving and diverse workforce. I think that's to be celebrated, but I think that there are some areas that I've spoken about, particularly in the gender area, where women just, for whatever reason, aren't showing up. And that could be because women are not necessarily capable, or it could be just a false type correlation, or it actually could be because there's no institutional structure or superstructure to support women in the pipeline to get them into jobs like linemen or other things. I know that. So I think that with the direction to staff, that when they report back, at least to me, I don't know if you'd like to hear it, Commissioner Fleming, I'd like to just see how any pipelines or other type of programs we're going to establish through this mentoring process with SCAPA that we have some way of measuring what our success is, and also bringing underrepresented groups into the workforce where it relates to specific work items that are being deployed in our operations, water and power operations. So, yeah.
Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. Commissioner Funderburk, item 22.
This is a legal contract. I just want to make sure council has instructed council that, and it showed up in the last board meeting minutes, but I just want to make sure it's clear for the secretary that it's California Public Utilities Order, General Order number 156, that DWP is not required to comply with, but that has acted as as a equity break on the investor-owned utilities since the mid-'80s in various degrees, and impacted various operations, including procurement. So the CPUC criteria go to gender, disabled veterans. Most recently, LGBT-owned businesses were included, and minority-owned businesses, to the extent that, whatever a minority is. I mean, the cities, for most of you don't know, is majority Latino, so I don't know how that works in terms of the context of that, but I want to make sure that our legal counsel know that they need to be reporting to us what in those different categories of people are being used to on our projects that we have. So thank you.
As with the past with the most recent legal contracts that were brought before you, we have made that request.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. We go to our regular calendar, having deferred item 23, we go to item 24. 30 megawatts geothermal energy purchase from the Ormesa Geothermal Complex Energy Project. Power sales agreement number BP 15030 and agency agreement number BP 15031 with the Southern California Public Power Authority.
So Commissioners, this is a very important piece of our renewable portfolio, and we've talked a lot about how we want to balance the portfolio between wind, solar, and geothermal. This is a geothermal project, and I have Brian Koch, who's Assistant Director of our Planning and Development. We'll give you a very, very short presentation so you know where it is, how the energy is flowing, and I would encourage you, Brian, just to hit the highlights of your presentation.
Very good. We'll try to go as quick as we can. Let's see if I can get this going. It's moving slow. Wow. Okay, we have a picture now. All right, so this is in the Imperial County. This is about 34 miles southeast of the Salton Sea. I know at least one commissioner's flown over the site. This is out in a KGRA, known geothermal resource area. It's an existing project that has been producing energy for many years, and it is now up for our contract, which would be starting in November of 2017. And next time I'm going to ask them not to have so many buttons to push.
So the important, I think, point on that last slide is that this is located 30 to 35 miles away from the Salton Sea. It's a completely separate geothermal resource area and does not have any connectivity with the Salton Sea area. And also our contract will help get more output so they can modernize the facility and we can get more megawatts out of the facility moving forward.
So this is a 35 megawatt facility. The department will be taking 30 megawatts of that. The Imperial Irrigation District will be taking the other 5 megawatts. This is base load generation, which is an important part of our renewable portfolio and for diversity. The annual generation and energy cost are shown there. This is 77.25 megawatts fixed for a 25-year term. For geothermal power, this is a very good price, the best we've seen in other projects that you've seen over the years here. Again, it's going to start at the end of next year after improvements at the plant are put in place so that the project has the 25-year life. Again, DWP takes 85%, IID will take 15%. This power comes up from the Imperial Irrigation District. It goes all the way to the east through Arizona, through the WAPA system, comes up to the Meade project, Meade site, and then comes into the department system, into the VIC LA transmission system. So it has to do quite a circuitous route to get to us, but this is how we get the power home. We wanted just to show that the prices of renewables have been dropping substantially over the years. We used to have $100 solar geothermal energy here, and today we have $77 geothermal energy. You've seen other solar projects that have come through in the past. So the prices have dropped, and it's helped manage our renewable portfolio. This project came in 2014, and we've been negotiating with Ormat, the company that's provided it, via a SCAP-up RFP for several years now, and now it's finished. It's already been approved at the SCAPA board and approved with IID for their portion of it.
Does Ormat own this?
Yes, this is an existing project. It's being delivered through Edison currently, and then when that ends, that's what we're taking over. I think really those are the main highlights of what we've got here. We can go through some more details, but that's the basics of it.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I actually did have a question. Are there any other geothermal developments that we're doing in this immediate area that are separate from the Salton Sea? Because I was the one who flew over and I'm very interested, and I understand that there are other things. I don't know how much you can talk about them, but maybe it's a subject for a further briefing. But I know that geothermal is very important to our future integrated resources plan for our future power systems, needs both to meet the RPS and also to fulfill the base load and flexible on-off that geothermal developers pitch that it provides.
We will be bringing you eventually more geothermal energy projects. With this company, they do have assets in Nevada. We will probably be looking at that. That diversifies. If you remember, you had a Don Campbell project here that was in Nevada. In the Imperial Irrigation District or Imperial County area, this will be one of the last projects, at least for a while, because of transmission constraints. But eventually, we will be developing other projects there as well, I'm sure.
I'll look forward to hearing about them. Thank you.
Is there a motion? I move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Thank you very much. Item 25, contract number 517 for hydrants, fire assemblies, and sections with James Jones Company. This item was deferred from the last meeting, June 7th meeting.
Excuse me.
I recused myself last time.
Goodbye.
This is a follow-up on the item we brought to the last meeting where we had one of the two vendors, the unsuccessful vendor, complained that their hydrants had not been properly tested or not been properly evaluated as to why they failed to meet the spec. And so we have a presentation about our testing protocol, and if you're interested, we also have a video of the actual testing. I think the video was alluded to by the unsuccessful bidder at the last meeting, and so you asked us to bring this information back to you so you could understand exactly the process we went through and to make sure that you felt that it was fair and unbiased. So Cree Horner will take the lead from Water Distribution, and Bart King's with him as well as Keith Session.
Good afternoon. Yeah, we just wanted to come back and give a little more information on how this proceeded. If we can go to the next slide. The main problem we have here is a worker safety issue. Back in 2013, we did have one of these bury elbows. This is a right angle turn at the bottom of the fire hydrant. It blew off due to the water pressure, and we did have an injury on that one. So we started checking very carefully on what we were getting. We require that it be a trim tightened joint. It's a very specific joint. It has very specific dimensions. Anybody can make it if it's patented by U.S. Pipe, but they'll let other people make it. But it does restrain the 90-degree bend onto the end of the pipe so it doesn't come off. We have an unusual water system. Our pressure here gets up to 300 psi, so it's much higher than a lot of systems. That's probably why we have the problem, is it's experiencing higher pressure. Go to the next one. These are the requirements of the bid that we put out. We required a trim tighten joint. It has very specific dimensions. The one the cloud provided is outside those dimensions. It doesn't meet the requirements. We have a maximum of 5 mil coating thickness in the groove so the gasket fits correctly. And the one they provided had a 27 to 51 mils of coating thickness in there, so it's well outside the specifications. And then is required to hold 300 psi for 15 minutes. And in our test, it got up to about 280, 285 psi and blew off. So it didn't hold it for any length of time, and it didn't get to 300 psi. This is a picture of the testing assembly. It's a little crude, but on the left, that's how it's set up. The pressure is coming up, and so it'll build and build, and then on the right-hand side, that's when it finally blew off. It fails somewhat catastrophically when it does blow off. On the last slide, this is just a description or a cutaway of a fire hydrant. The burial that we're talking about is on the bottom left there. It's just a 90-degree bend. On the far right, the gasket with the little silver things in there, that's a lock gasket. Those little silver things are teeth that dig into the pipe, and that's what restrains it so it can't blow off. If the gasket doesn't fit right, those teeth don't dig in properly, and that's what we've had problems with. Do we want to show the video?
It's short, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let us show you the video of the test so you can see, because there was comments made that things in the video showed that we didn't test properly.
Well, yeah. Right in the beginning, you can see the gauge is up at about 280, around in there. It's still there. What you're hearing in the background is the compressor pumping it up. And that's how they fail when they fail.
So this, of course, is why we spec out a very specific thing, because we don't want that happening, because not only injury, but also damaged property and things like that happen in the street once it's installed. As Cree said, the spec was very clear about what we asked for. Not only did it not pass the pressure test, but it didn't even meet the spec where that critical gasket was supposed to seat properly so that it could stay together. So the physical piece before testing also didn't meet the spec. So that's why that one bidder did not qualify.
Well, I personally appreciate the exercise, and I think, we speak about transparency and wanting to have a honest procurement process that's open to everyone and not use the same vendor time and again. And I think this evidence makes it easy for me to make a motion to vote yes and moving forward with this item.
Is there a second to Commissioner Noonan's motion? Any other comments?
Thank you.
Those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We move to item 26, excess liability and wildlife liability insurance.
Michael Salazar come up for this item.
Hello, this item, Michael Salazar, Risk Management. This item is for our excess liability insurance renewal. We're again looking at $150 million for wildfire cover, as well as $160 million for non-wildfire cover. The new configuration of the program does not allow for one side to erode the other side. So we have those single tower protections within the same premium base.
Questions? Comments? Motion? Second? Those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 27, agreement number 47409 for software commodities with Software One, Inc.
I'd like to do this in conjunction with the presentation at 30D, which you should have a presentation in your packet, which says Information Technology Services Division 2-year strategic plan.
Okay, we will consider them together.
All right. There was the presentation should be loaded soon. There was a discussion several meetings ago about the desire for a long-range strategic plan in the Information Technology Division. And that is something that we're looking at, and it's the priority item on the Information Technology Director, the new one that we're recruiting, as that person's top priority. A 10-year strategic plan usually consists of 5 years of actual projects and a work plan, and then usually a second 5 years of priorities, projects, alternatives, direction, different considerations. What we have right now in the Information Technology Department is a very specified 2-year strategic plan where we have gone through mission, vision, values, and a number of different items.
Dave, if I could interrupt quickly, your presentation wasn't provided, so you'll have to just work off the ones in the books. My apologies, it didn't get loaded.
Okay. My apologies to that. So we have gone through a process of identifying all of the components of a strategic plan for 2 years, including capital budgets, expense budgets, and a number of different items. There is an area on page 7, if you look at that, which the main sections of our strategic plan: infrastructure for communications, infrastructure for our system, security, business systems priorities, and processes. There are a number of different communications infrastructure that we look at, including 15,000 phones, 3,500 radios, fiber optics. There's then the 9,000 laptops, 1,600 workstations, and a number of different items there. We've got a major cybersecurity effort on page 10. They're listed there. A significant number of applications, including CIS, financial system, GIS, timekeeping. There are a couple dozen major applications that cross the entire organization. There are also some projects and processes that we look at, including system integration, business practice improvement, and 36,000 trouble tickets in 2015. We have a number of different challenges that we're looking at right now: staffing and succession planning, technology advancement, excuse me, efficiency and effectiveness, especially security, governance, and litigation support, including the customer information system remediation. Moving to really the items that I'm just going to go through quickly on page 14. We've got about 14 or 15 items that we're looking at over the next 2 years, which includes all the staffing and contracting resources, the 10-year strategic plan, what we call the executive level governance effort, which is where we look at all the system heads and create about 6 people that actually prioritize all of the items that are going in the IT work plan to make sure that, that we are prioritizing those and that we have the entire system buy-in to what we're looking at over the next several years. We've got to improve and extend our project management practices and disaster recovery efforts. And we would like to get a mobile approach to the MyDWP information for employees so that they can pull that off all of their mobile devices and have it access all the information they need to off those mobile devices. We've got a number of legacy systems that we've got to replace and consolidate. We want to evolve Maximo. And then what's really one of the key areas, excuse me, is an implementation plan for what's called the Enterprise Resource Planning System conversion, which is everything related to finance, budget, personnel, record keeping, general ledger, and we're starting that practice because that is another decades-old legacy system that we have got to convert because, it's 30 years old. And then we've got to migrate our data center to the co-location facility. A couple other things. We've got to comply with all the credit card requirements. We're looking at finishing the smart meter pilot program because we have got to get to the smart meter, smart grid, AMI, and we have started the very beginnings of that process so that we're developing an RFP to look at moving forward, but we'll be bringing an entire projected effort to the board in the next several months so you can see what that process and that project's going to entail because it's multi-years and it's comprehensive. One of the very key areas is cybersecurity. We have got to continue, and we've done a good job so far, but cybersecurity is increasing every day. So we've got to focus even more efforts there. Look at, every time there's a... Sure.
I have one question, because I could not agree with you more. But if you look at the budget, under security, it only allocates $3 million, which seems very, very low. Does that not include the cybersecurity efforts that we're making, not only for hacking, but, considering the grid and, potential terrorist acts? $3 million seems very, very low. Yeah.
What has happened is that security and cybersecurity efforts have been essentially spread throughout the department and budgeted in different areas. I'm considering it, and the general manager and I have spoken about this, of creating a director of cybersecurity that we can encompass all of those security efforts under that person. We will have the physical security under a physical security director, but we can start encompassing all the budgeted funds in a couple areas rather than spread them throughout all of the different departments and divisions in the organization.
President, if, with your permission, I do think this is such a crucial issue. I would appreciate if we could add it to a closed session agenda meeting in the future, just to discuss internally about where we are and where you foresee us being with this person who would head this program.
Sure. Council, is there any reason we can't include that in as a closed session item?
No, we will make it a closed session item.
Good.
Thank you.
So finally in that is to finish the customer service, improve the customer service experience for IT's department services to all of its internal and external customers. So again, there is a very full work plan for the next 2 years, which we have worked with the divisions and have created that essentially 2-year strategic plan so that we can be developing that long-range strategic plan, again, with input from all the users throughout the organization. So it's not just an IT strategic plan, but it's literally a strategic plan for the department of what IT services that we need. So one of the things that falls under that are a number of different contracts and software contracts that we go out for, and then the maintaining of those existing workstations, laptops, phones, everything else that we have. And we have on page 17 a list of the different contracts, 12 million for IBM, 37 million for Oracle, and 43 million for software commodities. These are things that we've spent in the past for different durations. This calendar year, the board has approved the other items listed there, Oracle software. And what we're looking at with item 27 is a software commodities contract that essentially creates a single entity from which we buy all of the various support software updates, releases, various efforts for all of those thousands of computers that we have. And it is a 3-year contract that will be utilized on an as-needed basis. And it is something we've done in the past, and it is what other city departments are using as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on either the strategic plan or the agreement. But kind of wanted to put the agreement in context of the overall plan and what we're doing.
Very helpful. Thank you. Commissioner Barad.
Yeah. Could you explain number 7 under the 2-year strategic plan?
Sure. Legacy systems are the systems that have been in place for a significant period of time. And the best example is the finance system. It's a 30-year-old legacy system that needs to be updated, and that's some of the code, some of the language, and some of the maintenance. Things have just, the world has surpassed it, and it has to be replaced. So we need to replace that legacy system. The customer information system, was a legacy that was converted a couple years ago. We want to ensure that the finance system doesn't experience the challenges and issues that the customer information system faced. So, that effort is just in the preliminary kind of seedling stage, but of getting all of that together so the preliminary work can be done so that when the conversion occurs, it happens.
So there are several
seamlessly.
Systems that need facelifts.
There are, because I like that. An accounting system might consist of a general ledger module, an accounts payable module, and a budget module, and a human resources payroll module. There are a number of different components to the conversion that you just think, oh, it's our finance system.
Yeah,
so
right.
Those are legacy systems.
Okay. Do we have anything in place that calls for a review after a certain number of years?
We haven't until now. That's got to be part of the strategic plan, is that
kind of an automatic
5, 7,
at,
10 years we start looking at
Right.
the options of either staying, cost benefits, or changing to a new system.
This area is just, it's evolving so quickly, you really can't keep up with it.
Correct.
Yeah. And I just wanted to ask, Commissioner Noonan mentioned the budget, but where are those now?
Page 7.
Page 7. Okay. On this, no.
It's 30D.
What am I missing? Did we get a 30D? I'm just looking for those numbers.
It's this page, it shows up as page 6.
6.
On your
okay.
report, on the paper.
Oh, here it is. Thank you very much.
I have one last question. It makes sense to do this, but out of curiosity, are we saving money by doing this under the umbrella of software commodities versus buying these licenses and upgrades individually? So is there a cost savings, or is it more a matter of efficiency and savings in terms of labor?
It's both. If we were going to do this under individualized contracts, we'd have dozens of contracts with dozens of durations that require dozens of RFPs. So going to this comprehensive organization allows us to save a significant amount of time for a very little cost, really relatively equal costs.
I had a question. And does this require our workforce to have any specific skills if they're going to be overseeing contracts like this? Like, do they need to be former software engineers, or are we going to be increasing our capacity in terms of software engineers internally, or what?
A couple different components. The administration of this contract does not require someone to be a software engineer. The existing IT staff completely have the skills to do this. Project management effort for like the legacy system conversions, those need project management skills, which can be IT related but don't necessarily have to. It needs someone who can manage a big project, more importantly, than someone that has gone through more of a hands-on implementation of a system. Then finally, we are looking at all of the needs, the software engineer needs, the project manager's needs of the IT department, and we are going through a number of hiring efforts right now, and I will be very upfront. We interviewed about 12 people for just a programmer. One person had the skills that showed up that we could hire. So we are in a marketplace where we're fighting with the entire world that needs technical skills, and we're looking at alternatives, like we're going to go do on-campus interviews in the fall and a number of other approaches that haven't been done in the past for technical skills and IT skills, because we've got to start increasing that and fight creating our own pipeline for those services internally, because we can't recruit. And it's not just LADWP that's having that challenge.
Yeah, I know. I've heard through just my baptism at the APPA and other organizations that they all go to Intel or Google, or you just don't have the quality, and so you have that gap there. So I would just say, if you need the budget, to come to us to do extra recruiting to get people who are the right fit, because we do offer something that I think a lot of other places don't, which is some degree of certainty in terms of job, which is valuable to some people who don't want to just, do the next .com or whatever. I've been a big proponent on the gender equity side of doing what we can to get women into STEM type jobs, and I think that this is something that's going to require extra effort. It's just not an excuse for us to not have women and these. I'm not talking about support staff. I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So, and we may have some, but I would like to make sure that the enterprise, does invest in that. And if it requires extra effort, come to us and let us know if we need extra effort to build a pipeline to encourage that. And then the last thing is something that came up, just conversation, was the rollout of these smart meters, and and also the project management competence We've had problems with previous rollouts before, and I would just say whatever we hear back with from the board, from the staff as a board, that we have some degree of assurances that whoever our project manager is, there's a second and a third, there's some type of backup system so that we can, lessons learned. And the work that you're doing on remediation is phenomenal. I don't think anybody else could have done it. You and the staff that General Manager Edwards has put together, but I would just say on these smart meters, as we roll them out, that we kind of have resilience or redundancy type of systems in place so that we do it right the first time when we roll it out, rather than having to look back and say, did we rush that? Sure.
Other questions? Other comments? Is there a motion on the item 28?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
27, correct?
27, I'm sorry.
Right. Yes, aye.
Yes. In seriatim, it is unanimously approved.
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
I had a
Hampton.
comment with respect to the presentation, if now is the right time.
I'm sorry,
A comment on the presentation.
please.
This is really heartening to see the department get its arms around a longer-term plan for IT. It's very encouraging, and none of my remarks in any way take away from the great progress that we're seeing with the planning around IT. But it has been about a year since our report issued on the billing system, and I did just want to remind you of the 3 priorities our office thought should be front and center. And I know the department's working on these things in the context of the billing system work and with the settlement. So I don't mean to suggest that they're not paying attention to them, but for your benefit, those 3 things had to do with controls in the environment, which are a function of the systems, which are quite aged and legacy. And the first one was the appropriate segregation of duties between meter data warehousing and billing and the rate manager's design of the rates. Those 3 functions are generally segregated for proper control purposes. The second item has to do with internal audit being strengthened so that they have the IT systems they need to ensure that the bills can be checked in a manner they consider effective and efficient. And the third item had to do with the elimination of manual billing entries, which are only going to go away if we have the systems that the people need to avoid them. So with that, congratulations for continued progress on the IT planning, but we feel strongly those 3 control items need to be front and center and focused on. I know I mentioned them to Mr. Wright on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, we move to filed items. 29A, monthly report financial services.
So both for 29A and B, I'd be happy to answer any questions, especially 29A. We went over that in great detail, the DWP stat, last board meeting.
Questions? Thank you. Excellent reports. 30A, 99th Street water quality update.
Okay, I just had a question. We had a cart turned in for 30. They didn't put what was A, B, or C for a Kalilia Haynes. Do you know what item you wanted to see? Okay, thank you.
I am joined by key members of my staff who worked on the Watson Green Meadows water quality issue that's been going on for the last month, and we're happy to bring you this report, which will be given to council on Friday, which should conclude this event. Jonathan Leung is the Assistant Director of Water Quality Division, and Bronia Lindsay, Assistant Director of Water Distribution, and they've been dedicating a substantial portion of their time and their staff's time to this issue, which has been the #1 priority in the water system since it came about a month or so ago. Just to give you a quick background, on this, the cloudy water episode first came up in late February. We had a number of complaints of cloudy water following a knocked off fire hydrant due to a car accident, and we responded. At the time we got there and sampled, the water had cleared, and there was no contamination in the water. There was some spotty calls from the public on occasional cloudy water over the course of the time, but things were always clear when we inspected. And then on April 28th is when the current issue really came up. We received a call from LA Unified School District reporting that they had discolored water and had been having experiences for a number of days. The next day we were there and we sampled the water at the schools. Again, the water had, for the most part, cleared up, and the samples came back as meeting the water quality standards. But then that following week, members of our staff attended an environmental justice town hall meeting in the Watts area, where residents brought samples of bottled water that were cloudy and discolored, very rust-colored. And that was the first time we'd seen the samples like that. May 10th, we talked to City Council. May 11th, we began a major flushing operation. The next slide, just to show you the area we're talking about. This little, what is that? Out of focus. In this, the area in the corner of town, this is the area, the 275 system is generally the Watts area. This was actually an area that was added to the water system in 1967, actually following the Watts riots due to fire flow issues and water conditions in that area. It was annexed into the water system. It is a low point in the system, and it is a dead end. So it's a natural point for things to collect, and things have nowhere to go once they leave the system. Next slide. The next slide just shows the same thing in terms of streets and the general area that was affected. This area in the blue encompasses the 20,000 different customer services that we've notified and been working with. The red arrow points to the dot, which is the primary source of water for the area, which is the 99th Street wells and pump station. At the 99th Street wells, we actually have the longest established corrosion control facility in the city. So it's one that's been running for a number of years. Briefly, I'd like to tell you the cause and source of the sediment. Go ahead. The cause of the sediment is high flows in the pipe. We had sediment that was settling in the pipeline, and then it was during high flow events that we had a record of this correlating to customer calls. The picture on the right is just to show, for example, this is a picture of the same stream under low flow conditions where it's nice and clear, and then the same stream under high flow conditions where it stirs up sediment. So anytime you have high flows, it tends to pick up particles. So this is something that, just for a natural reference, that people might recognize. The next slide shows the actual water quality complaints that we received over time, and it also shows a correlation to high flows that were related to hydrant hits. And so certainly it was the high flow events that were causing this to be disrupted and causing the sediment to float in the water. Next slide. The sediment itself is caused by natural levels of iron and manganese in the water supply. On the left is iron and the right is manganese. The red level is a secondary standard. There's not a primary health standard for this. The naturally occurring level of this material in the water is below the health standard. But what's happening is that when the water is chlorinated, it actually causes the metal to be oxidized, and then over time it precipitates out. So it was almost be like if you had a glass of sweet tea and you put something to preserve it in, and it caused the sugar to fall out. And so in this case, you have water that meets the standards. This is dissolved in the water, but the act of chlorinating the water causes this oxidation and then to fall out as minute rust particles. And that's what causes settlement to be collected. This is a sample I'll pass around. I won't shake it because it'll take forever to clear up, but this is actually beautifully clear water on top of a thin layer of sediment. Actually, in this case, this is during flushing, so it's a little bit of a thicker layer of sediment. But this is what we collect. In the case of iron, it would actually precipitate out in a matter of hours. In the case of manganese, it would precipitate out in the course of maybe 2 days. And we saw this as we sampled the system, that we'd have these iron sediments throughout. The manganese sediments would be more at the far ends of the system where there's a dead end where the water would sit further. And because this is a dead end system, water doesn't flow through, this material would want to accumulate, and then during these high flow events be caused to stir up. The other potential source, when we took over the system, most of the pipe looked like the pipe on the left. Over 98% of the pipe in the system was replaced with new pipe and cement lined, and cement lined pipe on the right has no corrosion inside. There are some potential pieces of pipe we're researching now that may be still connected, that we're looking to see if there's any additional sources of rust that could be entering. In addition, we also found 8 closed valves, which cause the water flow to be disrupted. It's not uncommon. We've had, maybe during the cement lining project, we could have had a contractor leave a valve closed. Also happens from time to time. There's a knocked out fire hydrant, and if the fire department maybe get on the wrong valve, and sometimes the valve gets shut and we're not aware of it. So we did find a number of shut valves, which also cause the system to not operate properly and flows to go properly. The actions we took, the 4 key areas: we flushed the distribution system to clear the sediments. We increased the frequency and the number of water tests going on in the area. We shut down the 99th Street wells and pump station to clean out the forebay to remove any iron that was accumulated there. And then we did quite a bit of outreach efforts. So the next slide is system flushing. Bruno, you want to talk about the flushing that took place?
Yeah. Bruno Lindsay, Water Distribution Assistant Director. Approximately, we flushed about 267,000 feet of water main or piping, which worked out to be about 50 miles. We used 2 methods of flushing. One was our no-des mechanical flushing system, which is like a filtration system, which we're in a process of purchasing a couple of those. And also we did manual flushing, where we had our guys actually go out and manually flush through a fire hydrant or some sort of valve where we can get the water all cleared up. Also, we a couple of lessons. Sorry.
Quick question, and this may be a naive question. Where did the water go? Are you alluding that it went to the filtration, a filtration facility?
With the no-des system, it actually went back into the system. It's a filtration type system, and that system actually caused us to save about 2.6 million gallons of water. Million gallons. And mechanical flushing, we actually put into the storm drain with dechlor tabs.
An interesting point on that, if I can, Commissioner, that we used to flush the system regularly, and then when we finished the cement lining program, we actually had the largest cement lining program, I think, in the world. Any pipe that was installed before the late 1920s had a coating inside, but wasn't a concrete coating, and so that would be, would cause it to corrode over time and look like that bad pipe on the left. So we actually cement lined virtually the entire water system over the course of a couple decades, and following that, we saw a tremendous drop off the amount of rusty water complaints all over the city. And so between that and then the issue of discharging water, especially as drought issues came on, we decreased that flushing program. And so we have not had active flushing in a number of years. If you go back to before the year 2000, we had an active flushing program. And so, but that water would normally be discharged. We do have learned through this episode that we do have areas we need to flush regularly with the no-des system that distribution is procuring. We'll be able to do that without wasting the water. So it'll be a tool that we've not had and didn't exist before.
All right, thank you.
That's it. Next slide. Okay, here's the system. It's a map of the Watts area. This is all the area that we flush, and like I said earlier, it's approximately 267,000 linear feet. And there were a couple of areas outside of the Watts area that we flushed as well that were experiencing some cloudy water, and we addressed those. A couple of those requests came in through different outlets. One in particular was school districts called us and asked us to flush an area just as a safety precaution.
So next we have the water quality testing. I'll let Jonathan talk about the testing that we did and the kind of results that we saw.
Okay, good afternoon, Jonathan Leone, Water Quality Division. So our testing, we actually tested and sampled at 3 different locations. One would be within our distribution system, and as Marty mentioned, one of the things we did immediately was step up to daily sampling and testing. So we had those results that we actually posted on the website for people to see, and that was one way of sampling and control. The other thing we sampled were at customers, so those customers that had complaints or the school district and or the housing authority, we made arrangements to go in and grab samples actually within the residents at the taps. And a third element that we did is while this flushing was going on, we actually collected some of the sediments from the filter bags to help us again verify exactly what type of metal contaminants we were finding in the water. So back in reverse order, with the distribution sampling, I'm going to show this graph real quick. You notice how the levels, particularly for manganese, which is the one that causes the dark discoloration, typical values in the system were found prior to this flushing around 30 to 40 parts per billion. After the flushing was completed on basically and shutting the wells down on May 15th, those levels have been consistently at 2 to 4 parts per billion. So they've been reduced about 15-fold. So that's very encouraging. Same on the iron, that's typically ranges anywhere from 10 to 20 parts per billion. Right now it's mostly been non-detect after. So that's the measurements that we've been doing in the distribution system. Now at the schools, again, we tested both for chlorine residual, which is important to make sure that we're killing off there's adequate disinfection to kill off the microbials. Chlorine was good. There was also no lead and copper. We did some modified testing assistance with them on that, but we did confirm that lead and copper were below action levels there, which is very helpful. And with the Housing Authority, we made arrangements in some of the empty units to actually go do some first samples, and again, they checked out very clear. So that's all very encouraging, and in terms of the sediments, again, the main culprit's a lot of iron, a lot of manganese, and just a little bit of aluminum. So we'll continue to be doing additional sampling. I think we're prepared to report back to the community at a major event on July 11th. That's the Watts Gang Task Force, and we'll be continuing our daily sampling through that point. And then maybe at that point we can discuss options for, I think, not only sampling within our system, but maybe leveraging some of the interest and the outreach that we've done, be able to do more sampling, say, at healthcare facilities or the school district and or at residential homes. So we're prepared to launch that program and be more aggressive on that.
For those residents who did consume the water with the sediment, are there any health hazards that they were exposed to, or?
We're not aware of any health hazards or any water that actually, this is the difficult part about this, is that the water meets the health standards. It's totally unacceptable in terms of its appearance and its color and how it looks. But the materials in it were naturally occurring in the water. They basically fell they precipitated out of the water column. But fortunately, the water was within health standards, but as I say, not acceptable to serve to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a few questions, just a few questions, even if it's interrupting here? You mentioned that you sampled at the schools, at HACLA, and at People's Taps, correct?
Right. We coordinated sampling at the schools through their Environmental Health and Safety Division, and I think we did 5 or 6 elementary schools total.
So why don't our sample results show in our presentation what those sample results are?
Well, we focus mostly on distribution samples. It's on the website, our school sample test results, so it's not part of the package. But
I understand, but I think to reinstill confidence in which I think I actually think that there was a somewhat unfounded confidence crisis here. And I think that the public really needs a thorough explanation of this, and the more data that we put out there, whether it's good or bad, I think that especially there's no reason for us not to share the data, with the caveat that DWP does not control the water up beyond where the water meter is. In other words, there are thorough explanations as to why the owner of the property who has their pipes, they may not have had their pipes replaced in 1967. And Watts has been around originally as a city, and then after it was annexed by the city of LA as a neighborhood, it's been around for a long time. And I think that the data, this is where I think it's important for the community to know this, and it's also important from the standpoint of understanding what we mean when we say the water is healthy, because, and I think the board needs to know this, because I don't think there's a thorough understanding of what a primary and secondary MCL is on this board. Maybe there is, maybe the board can say that they understand what it is, but there's a very specific difference between a secondary MCL, which goes to nuisance and color and smell and other qualities that won't be hurtful to the health. To say it's healthy on secondary MCL basis is totally different than saying it's healthy on primary MCL basis. And so I don't think this is really the last that we need to hear from you on this. I think that there needs to be a much more thorough understanding. The other thing that I noticed in looking at the outreach that was done, it was quite extensive. There was a lot of door-to-door knocking and everything, but I think that one of the things that I found to be very interesting was how few people understand what the demographic makeup of Watts is. Watts is generally viewed as a proxy for the word black, because that's how people associate the visual of the Watts riots. Watts is 70% Latino now. And if we aren't communicating in a culturally competent way with the Latino community in Watts, we are missing the majority of people in Watts. So I think that community in different parts of the city may have other barriers where we need to communicate, for instance, through the schools, and use the school children as a method of communicating with parents who do not always speak English as a first language. So bilingual flyers only get us so far. I just want to make sure that the word has gotten out so that the confidence is fully restored. I think that and once again, I think that there's actually a story to tell here. I think, and I haven't seen anything otherwise, as an environmental lawyer, this is no Flint. It's been bandied about as something close to it. I haven't seen anything that says it's that, and I think that we need to make sure that we have the data that we can arm the public with, so that if the community has problems, they can come to us with valid problems, not things that are just being scared up. So I personally would like to see, you referred to the testing and you said it's great. Well, let's see. Let's see the lead testing. Let's see the copper testing. Let's see the tap testing. That's great. With the caveat that there are, and maybe this could be done at I talked to Marty about this, be done at a presentation in July or August, with the caveat that the lead and copper rule, which governs our compliance with lead and copper federal standards, has a number of data gaps, and we do not do tap sampling because we're not responsible for people's taps, but we are. We may get blamed for it wrongly, and I think that the more data that we have to show that, it will instill confidence in the system. And if we reach across, cultural barriers that that our workforce may not be accustomed to going across, and we do it in a culturally sensitive way, we can really show that area of the system that that they aren't getting short shrift. Actually, their water may be cleaner than other parts of the city, like Brentwood, or other parts of the city where you may think it's cleaner. And so I think that the external perception of things will be helped by our developing and communicating with more data. And so I'd like to see some further report with those specific pieces of information included, so that this board has a full understanding of how primary maximum contaminant levels and secondary maximum contaminant levels operate, what we're responsible actually for, and what the landowners and or agencies or other people are responsible for after the water goes from the meter at the curb into the public plumbing system that is the owner's responsibility and not DW. So.
And I agree with you that transmitting the information is difficult. We've been posting the water quality results for this iron, manganese, lead, copper immediately on the website, but not everybody sees the website, obviously. So we will be daylighting the information to the community and trying to get out the word more in detail on that when we have our follow-up meeting in July. But we do need to use every opportunity to get the message out about exactly what measurements they are, as well as what those measurements mean.
And those are communications issues, but operationally, you get an A+. It's an A++. You guys did phenomenal work. You had the SWAT team to do the flushing. You had everything in order, and you dealt with the situation so that on the secondary MCL end of things, we'd be not just within the limits, but well within the limits. I think that we just need to take a step further just to provide an under-resourced community like this, and it could be Panorama City. It could be other places. Tony Wilkinson knows about the resources that all the parts of the city have, and I think that we'll be better served by it. So.
If I can address one of your issues, one of your concerns, we did recognize that it is 70% Latino, and so we did have some of our gate men, who are the gentlemen that go out and notify our customers that give door hangers. We had some of those gentlemen that are Spanish speakers, so we did recognize that. Also, we have another presentation that we're going to be giving to the gang task force in Watts, and it was suggested by our director to have the presentation also printed up in Spanish as well. So we do recognize the demographic, and we are addressing some of those issues. Some of the lessons learned from this past experience were early notification, community outreach, and community involvement. So we do take those things seriously, and we are addressing some of those.
If I could be kept up on any briefings that are being done with the community beforehand and notified of that would be great too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barad?
Yeah, I have some questions about the timing of this.
Yes.
Particularly as it pertains to the schools. If the Los Angeles School District called to report discolored water April of 2016, now for the last year at least, LAUSD has been flushing the water fountains. So where did this, was this missed? How did this happen that a year later they're calling about their water?
It's a great question. So it's a little different issue. So they flush their fountains as part of a long-time coordinated program because when the water sits at night in their pipes, and if they have any lead soldering or lead pipes or fixtures that have lead in them, as the water sits, lead leaches out of the water. And so it's the worst case is that water's been sitting for the long time. When it's used regularly, nothing's wrong with the water. So their practice is when they show up in the morning is to flush the mains because there's no lead up to the meter, but then after it gets on the customer's property, for instance, school district, because they have a lot of aging infrastructure on the school grounds, they flush that water to protect the students. So this was actually a different issue than the lead flushing. They had, it was about 3 or 4 days, I think, of cloudy water that didn't clear, and they contacted us. And so this is not a lead issue, and then actually the lead would be more of an invisible issue. This was actually what looked like rusty water color that was coming out. So it is separate. When they did contact us, we were there the next day with an inspector to look at the situation and take samples. And it appeared that it had cleared until we received notice from the community that they were seeing this elsewhere that following week.
Was it still corrosion in the pipes?
In this case at the school district, it looks like the corrosion was what was coming out. It was the sediment being disturbed in our lines that was going into the school lines, as opposed to their normal flushing is what's happening on their own piping. And so this was corrosion that was stirred up in the water and power mains that was going into their services, and that's what they were seeing when they called us. Did
So,
you have any on that?
yeah, so our flushing activities took place from May 11th to June 11th. And during those flushing activities, we would hand out flyers both to residents and try to coordinate those activities with the school. Mostly for the schools, we did those after hours on the weekends in terms of flushing the blocks adjacent to them.
Well, what would you have found if you had flushed it in the morning?
It would have probably been very disruptive to the school because you would have had students and pupils there.
But
So
what would you have found in the water?
when we flush, it's the same, a lot of iron, manganese. Sometimes there might be a biofilm that gets kicked up from the inside of the pipe.
But I think it's, so two different things. So when the school flushes, they're flushing their fountains on their property. So they're flushing for the purpose of flushing between their water meter and the fountains. When we're flushing, we're not flushing on the property, we're flushing out of fire hydrants. So we're flushing the water mains after we're done. You know, they'll flush out their pipes, but it's kind of two different flushing. We're flushing the public water system when they're doing that to protect their students from any lead that comes out overnight. They're doing that on site in the morning.
So when the Los Angeles School District called to report discolored water, where was it coming from?
It was coming from our water mains into the school. The iron color, yes.
Where?
So that was coming. That was
From a faucet?
Yes,
or a
their faucets and their
water-
toilets.
Yeah. It would be because it would come from the water pipes. It would be in anything that was using water. That was, if our water was stirred up and had this color to it, it would go off into every service.
Not the water fountains.
It would show up in the water fountains as well. Yeah. Whether you could see it or not, unless you had a pool of it, I don't know. But it would be everywhere.
But theoretically, these water fountains are being flushed in the morning.
And right, and so the difference is they're flushing for water that's sitting still overnight. Our problem happened is that we had this very fine material that was disturbed, and in this, when I was given this jar, it was very cloudy. It took a long time for this to settle out. So what was happening is that the water they were getting, they were continually supplied with this rusty colored water. It wasn't settling out in the system. It was staying suspended in our system all day long.
So was their water in the morning being flushed from water fountains? Was that healthy? Was that water healthy?
If they were flushing their piping for the reason they flushed, and that's to make sure there's no lead in the line, then that would have removed any issue they had on their plumbing. But it still didn't remove the fact that the water that kept coming in after that water was rusty.
Right, so that students drinking from those fountains during the day, after it had been flushed in the morning, what kind of water were they drinking? Was that unhealthy water that they were drinking during the day?
So if they're doing like a 30-second flush from every faucet.
In the morning?
In the morning, and every bubbler, the water quality should be fine.
By the afternoon?
Because what's in our system is fine, and they're taking that extra prevention to make sure that within the campus plumbing that there's no lead leaching out. So if they're flushing that for the full 30 seconds, the student should be fine.
So it was rusty and unacceptable, but not the reason they're flushing their lines. So it was not from a health standpoint, it was not bad. And what the schools did, because the water was rusty, was that they turned and started using bottled water on school campuses. And many of them shut their fountains off.
Shut them off. Okay, just tangentially, because I can't help myself. I saw this for the first time this morning, intra-departmental correspondence regarding the flushing of the fountains in the Los Angeles School District. And I know I brought this up over a year ago, and it's been discussed a couple of times. So I don't know the procedure, but I would like this on our agenda for our next board meeting. I want to know what's happening with this. And one of my concerns was not only was the water safe for children, but what's happening to all this water, the 60,000 gallons of water a day, where is it going? And I'm still not getting an answer. And I think we really need to address this.
So I'll go ahead and go ahead and finish the rest of the presentation. Just briefly, the other measure we took was cleaning at the 99th Street pump, and so we have a sand facility where sand from the wells, which is normally wells pump a little bit of sand when the water comes out, especially on startup. And we would add the chlorine before this, and so we had sand and some of this iron and manganese settling out in the pumping forebay there. So that was one of the things we did for cleaning. And then our communications plan, and Joe Romalo and his staff did a tremendous job in assisting getting the word out to the community. Brony, you were in the middle of most of these conversations. Would you want to talk a little about what we all did for the communications and how the outreach with the door hangers and such?
Yes, we not only sent out public notification, but we also did a door-to-door door hanger, so a knocker, door-to-door door hanger. And as I alluded to earlier, we had individuals, part of our staff, that not only spoke English but spoke Spanish as well to make sure that the message was going across. One more thing that we probably could have learned from this was the earlier notification, the better. That was one of the things that came out in one of the gang task force meeting that we went to before. And one of the biggest concerns from our public was that they wanted to know what was happening before they heard it on the news. And so I think we took responsibility of that and recognized that we would not only participate in more community outreach, but make sure we have open notification and open communication with our public.
Go ahead, next slide. Yeah, I won't repeat all the things listed there. And then lastly, we sent out a letter to the residents of the area talking about the situation and what we did to do it, to resolve it, and the fact that we believe that the situation was resolved at this time, and that if they had any issues or continued problems, to make sure they contacted us, so that we wanted to make sure we had some kind of closure to this and something that formally documented it, and that's what we'll be discussing with community meetings coming up.
This idea may be way out there, but I'm going to throw it out anyway. Do we have the technology, and I mean, is it even viable? You know how, it doesn't happen very often, but I know occasionally my cell phone will ring saying Amber Alert, da-da-da-da. Is it possible to have that technology so in an event like this, instead of having, hundreds of you walking the neighborhood door to door to get the message out quickly, to target, people who own cell phones in that area with a message saying DWT is working on this?
I'm sorry, that was part of the public notification. We were working hand in hand with our public affairs group, Joe Romalo, and Joe Romalo and his group did send out public notifications via email, Twitter, and the whole thing.
And I think your idea is right on. One of the difficult things, if you look at the number of meters, Mike, what do you have, 1.2 million power meters?
1.4.
1.4. We have under 700,000 water meters, and the reason is that everybody in a multifamily dwelling, everybody has their own power meter. What happens for us is that usually on a multifamily dwelling, which there are a lot in this area, you have one water meter. And so the customer that we have on record is the landlord. We don't necessarily have the consumers of the water on record. So if we can, and we're interested in bridging that gap, but what you said is the perfect way to do it is difficult in the water system because we don't have all those people who drink the water as much as we have the people who pay for it at that single meter. But that would be the way to go, absolutely. So lastly?
I was just going to add to that point also. I think we're trying to explore ways to utilize our CCB, the new investment, to prepare and merge lists from a mailing standpoint of power and water customers. We're also looking at potential alternate modes of communication. So if we're storing someone's phone number or cell phone number, maybe there's some procedures we can work on that, because I think you're definitely suggesting a great approach is multiple modes of communication if we can.
So just lastly, to let you know the upcoming actions, we're revising our response procedures to knocked off fire hydrants to include flushing immediately after. Anywhere in the city we get a knocked off hydrant, you can stir up sediment. We don't have that collection of sediment elsewhere that we're aware of, but we're going to change our response protocols. We're actually looking at new sediment gauges in the 99th Street pump station and also some other online monitoring in the system. One of the things that's come out of our innovation efforts, which actually our consultant will be here tomorrow from Israel, is that we are looking at some new devices that are available and used elsewhere in the world that'll give us more real-time water quality monitoring that we don't currently have available. So we're looking to deploy some of those out in this area to give us more immediate information if there's a problem. We're also modifying our water trouble software. We want to make sure that we have a trend in the water quality complaints, that we're able to trend complaints in an area so we don't have one complaint one day, one the next, that we can actually make sure that we have those trending properly to tell us that there may be a problem arising. And then at the 99th Street wells, you approved a chlorine station about 2 or 3 meetings ago. That'll be breaking ground this late summer, early fall. Following that, we've elected that we are going to install some kind of filtration system to reduce the iron and manganese, even though it's already within limits. We know that we have this problem with it falling out of solution. There are some high levels of treatment, but there are some that are effective at removing iron and manganese, and so we're going to look to install a treatment process at that location. Right now, those wells are off. We are doing bench tests to find out how fast things precipitate. That well field is a critical part of using our groundwater rights in the Central Basin. We'll make a decision as to whether we are better off leaving the wells on or off in the meantime, and the process to make sure that we don't have a reaccumulation of sediment. We're looking at the final piping improvements, including any last pipe that was not replaced, and dead-end situations where you have a dead-end main and there's no flow, and so the water doesn't move. And then we're also looking to use the NODA system that Brioni had brought up, and use that not only in this area but elsewhere in the distribution system where we think it'll be beneficial. And lastly is just a schematic of the process. So we have the chloramination station is about to break ground. Then we'll look for iron and manganese filtration, and this already has a zinc orthophosphate, which is a corrosion control, which protects the customers and their own corrosion. And we also inject fluoride in that area per health department protocol. And the final slide is what's coming up. And Commissioner Funderburk, I think you kind of alluded to some of these things. Customer plumbing issues are an ongoing issue throughout the city with aging pipe. Our corrosion control efforts help to protect customers from their own pipe corroding. We are looking for ways to get more involved with customers and help them assist in replacing aging plumbing. The lead and copper compliance presentation, we are finalizing that. We'll bring it to the board and keep that posted online so people in the city understand the lead and copper rule. We have a role in the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology through Nancy Setley. She's got the super secret clearance to participate in that, but our water system will be one of 2 utilities in the country that will be advising that panel, and we have offered our corrosion control expertise to that group. Our corrosion specialists have actually worked to train state drinking water regulators in some of the technologies that we're using. And then the last thing, customer lead and copper testing service. We are looking to embark on a service that we will test for free water from inside the home for lead and copper, because that's where most exposure is. We're just working out the logistics of how to do that, but we believe we can do that at an affordable price, and it'll give customers the ability to know that their actual water that they consume after they receive it from us is healthy. So with that, that's the end of our presentations. Any more questions? We'd be happy to answer them.
I think all questions have been asked.
No.
Oh, no.
I apologize.
One of the things when this first was brought to our attention that I warned about was just making sure we message so the community does not conflate the different issues. Lead and copper, the treatment plant upset that took place, and when was it? January?
It was in January, yes.
January, February, which you addressed, and the secondary MCL nuisance issues related to the cloudiness. And so I just want to make sure that as you communicate things, reassure the community that, remind them that if an upset takes place again, even though the regulations only require us to provide notification in 60 or 90 days, we will notify them within whatever you're comfortable with, but sometime sooner, because I think that that's really the bitter taste that I'm hearing that people have in their mouths about the fact that it took so long to notify. And while we can say that we're meeting the regulation, that's fine. We met the regulation, and we had to, we dealt with the state water board on that issue. But it would be, I think, important to have some formal notification protocols, if it's an Amber Alert, that's one thing, but if it's something less technological, I think the community would have greater confidence if they knew that they would be notified sooner, not just of the third box, which I talked about, the turbidity and the secondary MCL issue, but of all things, including a treatment plan upset. And the last treatment plan upset, my reading of our water quality reports happened to happen, I think, in either Boyle Heights or East LA. So if there's the impression that these are happening in certain areas of the city, it's better for us to just kind of do the work, get the data, and dispel the notion, and then kind of make sure that the public understands that maybe there are other parts of the city actually that do need to get addressed by way of the lead and copper rule that don't need to, that need to be brought to that attention. So if you can just make sure that that message is communicated clearly and that the community has an understanding of what to expect by way of notification for upsets or problems that are discovered in each of those 3 areas, I think it might help to organize things in their heads, and it would help to organize things in my head. I don't know if anybody else, but I think it would go a long way to really making us look like good stewards here. Thank you.
More proactive than reactive.
Yeah, absolutely. And the situation in January was very far out of bounds for notification. This, fortunately, we responded very quickly on. Unfortunately, they're back to back, and so in the public's eye, it's all one problem, which we understand. The one silver lining we are seeing out of this is we have a number of new relationships in the community that we did not have before. Jonathan received phone calls from the school district this morning. We have people calling back, giving us feedback, and the one that we've asked for is that if the problem should be solved, if something happens, let us know. Matter of fact, we had a KO'd hydrant Friday or Saturday night, and it did not cause a water quality problem, which is an indication of success. And so we have people proactively reporting back to us and giving us feedback and helping us be our eyes and ears as to what they're seeing at their taps, which helps as well.
And I think, Jonathan, you and Brionia, I know that you probably didn't get a lot of sleep. So, I have to hand it to you for hanging in there and putting in the extra time to make this happen. I'd encourage you to, if there are any members of the community, of these communities or other communities that for which they do not have a clear understanding, no pun intended, as to how clear their water actually is, then just go up and introduce yourself to these gentlemen and make sure that you have contact with them, because DWP, we're about making sure that everybody knows what's going on, and I think that that's an important message to get out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we move to our final item on the open session calendar, 30C, equity metrics. I understand
You're
that
skipping over me.
What?
B.
30B?
Oh, I apologize. I was just anxious. B, not the final item on the agenda.
I will,
but a very
however,
important item that hopefully we have enough time to.
I will, however, be brief. In part, I wanted to remind the board, this is one of the reasons that we're going to be reordering board meetings, because the focus on some of the larger issues is really becoming more and more critical on the part of the board. And so we are going to be starting earlier, moving up critical presentations. We're going to routinely start giving you framing presentations to give you the right underpinnings to then analyze some of the bigger issue. That's what mine is today. I have really what's called kind of the big picture, stand way back presentation so that you can come in and see how DWP really fits in to the broader structure. I'm going to have Dave do my slides for me, since I cannot apparently do slides and talk at the same time. Take a look at the United States, actually parts of Canada and Mexico as well. We have about 845,000 megawatts. That's 845 gigawatts if you prefer. And out of that 845 gigawatts, 172 gigawatts covers the western United States. California is roughly 60,000. LADWP is 6,000. Okay, so just from a perspective standpoint. A couple of high-level statistics. There's actually over 3,000 electricity providers in the nation. 85% of them are either municipally owned utilities or rural co-ops, which are very similar to municipal owned. They're just usually a consortium where they serve a variety of towns, but they use tax-exempt debt. They're not for profit. They're for the benefit of the member. They're very similar to municipal agencies. There's 3,000 of them. And who is serving who? Investor-owned agencies serve the lion's share at 68%, and munis and co-ops serve about 24%. And how much money is moving around? Over $377 billion. It's a hugely profitable industry, and it's why you see a lot of players in this particular space. Okay, now I'm going to shrink down and start to focus on just our region. In 2007, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission approved agreements by which another agency delegates authority to monitor and enforce compliance to 8 regional entities. And these regional entities, they have everybody in them: investor-owned, federal power agency, co-op, state, municipal, provincial utilities, independent power producers. It basically, these entities account for virtually all of the electricity supplied in the United States. Okay, and again, extends up into Canada, into parts of Mexico. Let me see. Some of these regions operate connected with one another, and others do not. As an example, Texas operates alone as Texas. The Northeast Power Coordinating Council, the blue up in the far corner, they operate alone. And the green, the Western Energy Coordinating Council, is it Energy or Electricity Coordinating Council? It's probably electricity. WEC, they operate alone, and we are inside WEC. Okay, so one of the reasons they do this is, let's say there was a massive blackout in Texas. Well, it can't extend outside of its boundaries. Same thing why when you hear New York has a large-scale go-down, it can't reflect across the United States. It's because there are these 8 different operating regions. Okay, within WEC, however, within the green, it is all one big swimming pool. Everybody is basically connected to everybody else, and the utilities are operating in unison, all interconnected by transmission lines, following the ups and downs of customer demand, buying and selling energy-related products. It's called a balancing act for a reason. Because again, we only supply energy as you need it. You've seen those load curves. So all of these systems are operating in unison, following customer demand literally on a regional basis. I don't think a lot of people think it's limited to California or even to us, but we are part of a much, much bigger machine. Okay, so let's talk about the people who are actually doing the balancing. So again, I'm in that footprint of the Western Energy Connection. There's probably 30 or 40 agencies. You can see in California, the blue is the ISO. You can see a little circle, that's DWP. These are the entities that are providing the services that keep our region stable. We also provide services for the smaller agencies. So there's far more than 30 to 40 utilities here. I would hate to project. You can take a ballpark. There's probably, I don't know, at least 800 or 900, I would think, if there's 3,000 in the nation.
As far as in California?
No, I was thinking actually far the western region.
Oh yeah, at least.
Okay. But not all of those agencies are balancing authorities. Not all of them have the responsibility for keeping the system stable and for interacting with others. That responsibility just falls to these 30 or 40 agencies. And that's why it's really important to understand that DWP is, in fact, a balancing authority. I threw in this next slide just to show you, in case you thought I might be oversimplifying. Here's actually what they're balancing. So 30, 40 agencies are working with that. Go to the next one.
That's a prettier slide.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was a little more complex. But what the balancing authority does is it manages the frequency. You heard the term 60 cycles. The reason a system stays at 60 cycles is it has a balanced amount of supply versus a balanced amount of demand. It's one of the main responsibilities of a balancing authority. They move generation up and down to follow customer demand. And they're also the responsible entity to maintain reserves in case there are unexpected changes in demand, loss of supply, line relays. So they are basically the adult supervision for that area.
I'm finding fascinating, so thank you for taking the time. But exactly how are they balancing? Are they working off like a master grid? How does that?
It's an interesting question, and I'll try to make the answer understandable. We're all connected by these transmission lines. And we buy and sell with each other, with other agencies, and we end up with a number that reflects all our outgoing transactions and our incoming transactions. It's one number, it nets it out. It's positive if it's going out, it's negative if it's coming in. So let's say you have a number of minus 100. That's your control number. Every utility does that. They create a control number, and it changes. It could change in a minute, it could change in an hour, it just reflects transactions. And so that's how we stay interconnected with each other. And by the same token, we are tracking the demand of our customers and following that at the same time. So that control number manages our interaction with others, and we ourselves raise and lower our generation to follow you around as you want more or want less power.
But what do these numbers mean? What does a minus 100 number mean?
Let's say that you and me and Mike are interconnected utilities, and you're selling me 10 megawatts, and I'm selling Mike 50, and Mike's selling you 20. You end up with an algebraic number of adding these pluses and minuses together, and you put that into a control system that moves generation up and down. And the generation will both follow your load, and it'll match to that number. Mostly because electricity doesn't flow on a line. You can't say, I want 10 megawatts on that line. Electricity flows based on the path of least resistance. Unless you're direct current, that doesn't matter. So what you have to have is a system by where you can move electrons across transmission lines, but it has to be done in mass, that you can't pick particular pathways. So when you and I have a deal in place, let's say for that 10 megawatts, I will raise my generation 10 megawatts, you will lower yours 10 megawatts. And the system stays stable and balanced at 60 cycles. It almost requires a trip to the Energy Control Center to see kind of in person, but that's the really high-level system of interaction that's going on. Okay, I hope that helped.
Is it a zero-sum game?
It is on a regional basis, yeah. Altogether, every input should equal output, and the system will stay balanced at 60 cycles. Okay, so yeah, on a regional basis, it should be. In fact, there have been instances where people put in numbers in their control systems the wrong way, and suddenly the entire western region, the frequency's going up, and everybody's looking around going, well, who's done that? And everybody feverishly searches for where the mistake is, because the frequency will just keep going up.
As a power expert, do you use game theory to help to predict some of the movements?
Some. Over the last 10 years since deregulation, which will be what I'm setting the basis for, and then Mike will take over, here's how the market's then overlaid around all these structures. It's far more regimented than it was years ago. So, kind of. Okay. We want to make one note on balancing authority compliance. It is heavily regulated. There are very defined standards that we have to follow. We have also emergency preparedness operation requirements. We are audited on both a planned and surprise basis, and there are multi-million-dollar fines for violating your compliance requirements. And this is because the theory of you're supposed to be able to bury your own dead. If you have a problem on your system and you're reflecting into somebody else's system and you're not fixing it, you could literally pull down the entire western region. So they're very serious about making sure that you operate within the requirements of being a balancing authority. And we, of course, have to self-report if we do any violations. And the penalty for not self-reporting is pretty significant. So,
Could you quickly elaborate on what emergency preparedness operations, what does that exactly mean?
Go ahead.
So for example, this would be something along the lines of how do we handle contingencies? How do we set up our protocols so that we're ready should there be some sort of an emergency on our system? And so the first category where we have balancing standards, that's about that second by second balancing, and the other is how do we respond should there be a major contingency on our system?
So right now, as an example, is it still N-1?
Well,
Is a requirement?
N-1, N-1,
Yeah.
N-2, they're all requirements.
The point is, historically, the threshold is you had to be able to cover your largest contingency, whatever that could be, loss of an intermountain unit, loss of a transmission path. But over the years, the compliance standards get higher and higher and higher. So you're carrying a substantial amount of reserves. You also have a very limited time window. If something happens unexpectedly, do you still have 10 minutes to recover?
We do.
And that's it. So you have to have things at the ready very quickly in case you experience a contingency. And then you need to immediately prepare for the next one. Because usually the things that cause big outages are things where you get 1 or 2 or 3 things all happen in a short window of time. So.
And there's one other important point. There are standards, but this is why balancing authorities tend to have their own personality in how they approach problems. And LADWP has approached problems in a very conservative manner because we don't want to be a problem in the West. We want to make sure, we are taking care of our customers and our embedded utilities. And so this personality is very important when we think about strategic objectives that others might have for us. We'll talk more about later, but we wanted you to understand that this is important to us and we do things a little bit differently because we care how we approach our customers.
That's a good point, thank you. All right, I'm shrink us a little bit further now from the Western region into just California. There are 8 balancing authorities. Do not be deceived by the relative size, that's geographic. Low density is probably a more interesting factor. As an example, the low density in the territory that the California ISO is managing is about 0.5 megawatt per square mile. Ours is between 5 and 6 megawatts. So low density is a larger issue. We talked about California not being an island. If you want to talk about the dispersal, I guess, of control, if all of California is 60,000 megawatts, we're about 6,000, we're about 10%. The balance of the muni community is probably another 10%, and the rest of it is the investor-owned utility customers. Why are there multiple balancing authorities? Oh, one thing I do want to mention quickly is the balance of the Western region. The majority of those utilities do business like we do, meaning they buy and sell on an hourly basis. But California decided back in the late 90s to go an entirely different way. And so the municipal community was given the choice of joining the ISO or remaining outside of it. And for those of you who will recall, when the deregulation occurred, which Mike will go into in more detail. My only point is to try to explain why there's multiple balancing authorities and we're not in the ISO. We made the strategic decision at the time to not join. The energy crisis was the result. And as Bill mentioned earlier, LA fared very well as a result of that decision. But decisions always need to be revisited under evolving circumstances. So what may have been a choice for us in the past, it could be a different choice in the future. But that's why there's multiple ones of those balancing authorities. And again, just to make sure you don't think I'm oversimplifying, that's California, what they're really managing. That concludes the kind of the bigger picture stuff. Mike will then get into on a later date how the market structures changed when, even though we are what we call vertically integrated, generation, transmission, distribution, customers, and much of the Western region in the United States is exactly the same, the California model for the balance of them is very different. They sold off generation. Other people control their transmission. Market mechanisms are different. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of solution. So I just wanted you to have those few points. We will continue to bring these forward and help cement a bigger picture because there's pending legislation. There's a variety of things that are happening that you'll need both an adequate operational underpinnings and as well as the market overlay. All the torture you'll get.
I just want to comment that, at least speaking for myself, this is extraordinarily welcome, extraordinarily important. And in my view, maybe more important than anything else that we've dealt with during at least the tenure of the new board members, I've been indirectly, sometimes subtly, sometimes not, approached by policymakers in Sacramento who have their own set of agendas and ideas about what DWP ought to or not to be doing. I suspect we are going to be under pressure to do things the way other people do them, and in my view, very few things could be more important than understanding this context, which I don't understand. This is a very important beginning, and I think it's a tutorial that we very badly need. So at least others on the board may understand it more clearly than I do. I don't, and I think we have to. So, thank you. Okay, now item 30C, which is the final item on the management report and open agenda before we get to the closed session. I understand that at least one of our commissioners has at least some passing interest in this item, but I won't elaborate further.
There's two.
There's probably five. But I've heard from one more than others.
Okay, so for the equity metrics, we have a short presentation I'm going to go through. And again, this is, as you stated, Commissioner Funderburg certainly has been driving us very hard on this. Staff has worked very hard over the course of the last 2 weeks to put this together. And this is just, we need to crawl before we can walk and walk before we can run. And that's what this presentation is meant, is the start of the discussion. Again, as was talked about before, part of the rate action, we now have 49 new performance metrics and a defined reporting process. And while these new metrics provide financial and operational performance data, both the board and other key stakeholders have requested the creation of equity metrics, and this is the beginning of that discussion. So just the definition for equity metrics, they're performance indicators that provide policymakers and program managers with data analytics which assess how well programs, services, and resources are distributed and utilized geographically and demographically. So we're going to look at adding some staff to facilitate this in the very near future, as well as probably some outside resources. So there's 4 key areas that have been identified for this. One is residential water and power reliability to ensure customers receive reliable water and power services equitably. And we're going to show you some examples of that. Also, project services, customer incentives, again, to ensure equal access to energy efficiency, conservation, and assistance programs. We have a lot of data. The challenge we're going to have over the course of the next couple of months is how we can bring that data up. And again, we're going to show some examples as we move forward. Procurement, I will ask when we get to a specific slide, I'll have Gwen come up and go over that. But again, to provide Los Angeles businesses and the small businesses with fair and equitable opportunities to compete. And then what I think is the biggest, and we had a lot of discussions of this, when we did the presentation down in South LA, it's a great opportunity we have with 40% of our workforce leaving to bring in LA residents to replace our workforce. And it not only makes sense from an equity point of view, but it also makes sense financially. All the money that we're going to pay, we want those people to be in Los Angeles, come from those areas. It's a great opportunity to come here and work at the department. It's a good place to work, and it's something that we can look forward to with our citizens, hopefully. So again, the objectives, it's going to complement the rates metrics and DWP stat. I'm not going to go through all this, but it will identify disparities in water and power services reliability. And again, the last item, promote gender equity and access to training programs and employment. All of these different things is going to be the challenge of the next couple of months. So this is just draft equity metrics that we put together. By no means a complete list, but as we've gone through and looked at to start the discussion, and where you see the asterisk, this is again what I spoke of earlier, is the big challenge is going to be breaking out into various geographic regions. I'm going to show you some examples in the next couple of slides, but like water system leaks, mainline replacement, water quality complaints, which was discussed earlier, SAIDI and SAFE, which is reliability indices for the power side, pole replacement, cable replacement, all those different things, as well as rebates, which is in the project sites and services, customer incentives. It talked about the electric vehicle infrastructure, feed-in tariff, solar incentives, and then the procurement and employment. And we're going to have some, again, Gwen will come up on the procurement and the employment. I'm going to talk a little bit about the utility pre-craft training program, which is one item we can mention, which I think has had some great results to date. However, we need to do a little bit more in that area. So this is just an example of available information that we have. So when we look at this, you see the various districts. So in the upper left, for example, where it says Northridge, that obviously doesn't mean that whole area is Northridge, but that's the district that power distribution goes out of. Same with Van Nuys. And you can see West LA, Palm, Lincoln Heights, Central, and Wilmington. On the left-hand side in the box is the different indices. So let me just give a quick definition. So SAFE is the System Average Interruption Frequency Index. So that is the average number of interruptions per year for the system. So for example, where you see Northridge, on average, if you're a customer in Northridge, you're having 0.64 interruptions per year in that district. And then SAIDI, which is the System Average Interruption Duration Index. So on average, if you're a customer in Northridge, you're going to be out of power, have a power outage for 62.6 minutes essentially. And then CAIDI, which is Customer Average Interruption Duration Index, means that if you're one of the customers with an outage, how long is that outage? So that just means every customer that's had an outage, it's 97 minutes. So when you look at this, again, this shows where are the reliability issues. This is a 12-month average. This is something the power system, quite honestly, has had for a while. We can look at whether or not we can get down to more discrete geographic areas, but certainly this provides us at least with some initial. And you look at this, in the West LA area is actually the worst, with a SAFE of 1.22 and a SAIDI of 173 minutes. And you can see all the other ones. But this is the type of indices that we want to put out and see if we can get even some further granularity in how we look at this. Next is, and again, an example. So this is poles, cables, and transformers. So the green, where you look at the green, is the green dots are poles under the PRP that have been completed. This is by no means a complete list, but it's just an indicator. And then the triangles green are transformers that have been completed. And then the same symbols, but in red, are planned. So this is the level of complexity and granularity that the power system has. We can obviously get further down into the details, but this just shows an example of what we're going to do as we go forward and we work with the stakeholders and look at what's the more appropriate geographic regions that we want to look at and any other comparisons that we may want to look at as well. Next is the electric vehicles. And this is the two rebate programs that we've had. I forget which one's which. I think the red is the first rebate program and the yellow is the second rebate program. But quite honestly, the gentleman that made the discussion or made the comments earlier, you can see that's fairly well supported by the data. There's not a lot of electric vehicle chargers in the South LA area. This is the types of things that we want to be able to bring out and look at objectively. Where are those and what is the cause for that going forward? Low income and lifeline programs. So we have the two programs, the low income, just a brief description of that. It's a discount. Discounts $5 per month for water and $8.17 per month for power, which is applied to the bills. Lifeline is for customers who are 62 years of age or older, permanently disabled. They may qualify as well, and that lifeline is $10 per month for water and $17.71 per month for power. And what we're going to look at is where are these customers by geographic region. We obviously have the customers, we have the zip codes, and again, how do we display that so that we can provide some analytics to that? We'll have it available, but that's going to be the hard part. I think we have the raw data, but the analytics are the tougher part. Same thing on energy efficiency, and David Jaco obviously has been really ramping up on the energy efficiency. We have a number of different programs. We know who the customers are, so we obviously have their zip codes. We can bring that in and we can look at that geographically as well. Again, the same challenge to look at that and into a meaningful analysis of why are those programs going where they are. Some of these programs we have here, refrigerator exchange, we have the low-income refrigerator exchange program, we have different programs, but this will show it by looking across the city. We always have to remember the city's so large that, on most utilities, they have a much smaller area. In Marcy's prior presentation, while Edison, or they're much larger, but when we look at other, nothing against Anaheim or Riverside, but very small compared to Los Angeles. And with that, I would like Gwen just to come up real quick if she could go over this chart.
Gwendolyn Williams, Director of Supply Chain Services. Under the area of program development, basically we've developed our SBE DVBE program in compliance with the Mayor's Executive Directive number 14, the Business Inclusion Program. And we also, when we were establishing this program, which was the basis of which was formed about 3 years ago, we had multiple meetings with business advocacy groups like the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber of Commerce, the Latin Business Association, and the National Association of Women Business Owners, and the Asian American business community. They complained about some of the portions that we had of the program, and we made adjustments based on their recommendations and their complaints. We have outreach and support activities in support of the SBE DVBE program. We've probably attended about 27 different outreach programs that have been held at the city. If there's a disabled veteran meeting that was held, I think, in Irvine about 2 weeks ago, we're there with a booth and representatives. There's something called CalCon, which is an event that's held every year where there's a number of prime contractors that get together, and we provide representatives, and we have a booth there. Excuse me. We have the Small Business Academy, which we're getting ready to start our third year. The first year was open to everyone. The second year we opened to everyone, but we had a focus on women-owned businesses. And this third year, which will start in September, we're going to focus on disabled veterans as our emphasis, again, though it will be open to everyone. And we're collaborating. At first it was LADWP and the Department of Public Works. Last year it was the Department of Public Works, LADWP, the Port, and the Harbor. And this year Metro decided they wanted to have their own academy, but they're going to send some representatives over. They've got a very robust DVBE program, and they're going to participate with us on the academy. Our procurement activities in support of the SBE DVBE goal really primarily consist of setting goals for anything that's not equipment. We used to set goals on equipment. It didn't really make any sense, so we don't set goals because the manufacturers don't have an ability to include other people, and so we don't set goals on equipment. And that kind of indicates the differences that you see in 2013, 2014, and 2015. Some of it, I'd like to say all of the increase in numbers is because of our great outreach, but it's not. It's because we're only counting the goals against equipment, and before we were, with services and construction, and before it was included equipment. The 25% that you see, the numbers don't add up because sometimes we've got an SBE that is also a DVBE, and also it could be a woman-owned business. So, but our target was 25%, and in 2015 we achieved that target. In the upcoming year, we're going to look at more outreach activities. We've changed our a way of monitoring the participation of small businesses. We used to just leave it up to the systems to monitor the participation, but now we have a website where we monitor what the achievement is, and if we see that the numbers are not what they should be in terms of what they've said they were going to meet in their proposal or their bid, then we go in and chat with them. I periodically send out letters asking the prime contractors to directly contact me and provide me with their information in terms of their achievement. Last year, we found a problem with that, and we were able to rectify it before the contract was over. So that's about it in a nutshell, unless you have any questions.
I want to thank you, Gwen, for all the work that you did. There were, I think, Jeff, about 15 procurement metrics that we identified, and because Gwen had already done the work, we shrunk it down to one. You've really done a great job at trying to, I don't think that you get a lot of credit for it.
Oh, yeah, I get credit.
Well, I'm giving you more credit for it because sometimes when you do well, then everybody leaves you alone because you're not working on the latest fire du jour. But you've done a great job. I remember when we first talked about, we were new to the commission, and we were talking about eliminating the good faith efforts requirements because they seemed like they were illusory. And the message that I send to all general contractors, including those that are here or listening to this, is that Gwen Williams is watching, and that when people make promises, they just can't bait and switch DWP. And I think that Commissioner Fleming brought up the fact we went to a small business, more of a hard small business requirement, and he asked for the demographic profile of the small businesses versus all the businesses that we procure from. I think that was very helpful to inform that the small businesses, they're generally more of these categories of businesses, whether it's women-owned or minority-owned or whatever, that happen to be small businesses, and we could accomplish a lot of what we wanted to do by making a small business hard target. So I think that when you report, you had some information for us about what the small business population looked like and what the general business population looks like in terms of what we do, what we do work with. It would be helpful for purposes of comparison and transparency for people to see, who are the small businesses and how does it compare to the overall population. I think it will show the progress even greater, the progress that you've made in doing this. The second thing is that on the CPUC recently passed requirements for LGBT-owned businesses. I know it's probably not something that we query for or have that box check or whatever, but I would, even if we can't get that done immediately, I'd like to start collecting that information or just come back to us with the feasibility. If there are any obstacles or barriers, let's just figure out how to do it. I think that, again, if the CPUC is doing it and all the other investor-owned utilities are doing it, it's not like monkey see, monkey do, but it is, we do, if it's something that's valid and brings in useful data for the public about the population of people we're doing business with, I think it's useful. It's also consistent with other mayoral directives as well.
Okay, yeah, we are doing that as of the first of the year.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So let me, okay, okay. I was just going to say there's two more slides if there's other questions for Gwen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Gwen. So just two more slides. I know we're getting late in the day. Another example is the utility pre-craft training. And this is a very successful program of recruiting, training a diverse workforce. Local 18 worked very hard with DWP as well as the Repower LA Coalition. And just direct to the bottom right where you look, and I won't go through everything, but if you look at the African American where the UPCTs were 22%, and that's almost 3 times what you have in LA County. So that's a pretty staggering number. Hispanic Latino, basically right in line. This is, and as we went through in the rate process, I can't reinforce this enough. This is such a great opportunity for many of the people in our community to come in and work for DWP, and it's good for business because, again, the money will stay within DWP, and we want people from our community to come work for us. And then just lastly, the plan. So we talked about today is June 21st, obviously, the start of getting the feedback and direction from the board. July and August, the summer project will be to work with communications operating orgs and get key input from key stakeholders on the development of these equity metrics. We're going to look sometime in September, October to finalize these. We'll make sure that we can collect and evaluate the data in November and December. And then February 2017, which is also the initial for the rates metrics reporting, we'll come out with the equity metrics. And with that analysis, and then we'll go through the same process with the RPA that we've identified for the other 49 rates reporting metrics.
Barbara, do we have a speaker card on this item?
Yes, I have 2 cards for this item. Okay, the first speaker is Tony Wilkinson.
Tony Wilkinson from a low-income Panorama City. I want to be generally supportive of this and also to provide some perspective. To the extent that the challenges that you face involve things like demand reduction, energy efficiency, water conservation as key parts of this system challenge that both commissioners and senior management face, this is really something everybody in the city needs to participate in. And I think that these equity metrics are less about individual parts than to make certain that everyone in the city is able to be engaged and participate in the challenges that the department face. So to me, it's actually less important what the individual metric is than the process that this is going out and engaging all the parts of the community in the challenges that I hear you guys face each meeting and every day in the department. I do want to also, however, make an observation that in addition to the underserved communities or whatever, these communities are facing tough times managing food, housing, shelter, and water and power. And to the extent that, while it's noble, the city or the commissioners ask us to serve, we have a lot of mandates. To the extent that we exceed those mandates at higher cost to the system, then that delivers higher costs to low-income communities. So I think that part of the dialogue is not just engaging everybody, but also asking if we're being aspirationally better than the mandates, how much is this doing to low-income ratepayers? So that needs to be considered in this whole package, as well as the distribution of opportunity to participate in the programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Kalila Haynes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kalila Haynes. I'm here representing my organization, Climate Resolve. I'm just here to...
Can you speak into the mic?
Yeah. Kalila Haynes, representing Climate Resolve. I just want to underline our support for this equity initiative being led by Commissioner Funderburk, and want to encourage the department to be aggressive in the implementation of this project. And we're excited to see the next steps, and congratulations. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I do have one more card. Irma Munoz.
Good afternoon. It's a wonderful afternoon, and it's actually a historic afternoon here at DWP. I'm the founder and executive director of an environmental equity organization located in Los Angeles County. And I want to tell you that this is very historic. And I think that if many folks knew that you were talking about equity metrics, you would have an overflow crowd here, because of the importance of your acknowledgement and recognition of the change of demographics because it's going to be a culture change for DWP. This is going to be like a tsunami. It's going to be very overwhelming because it's a lot of hard work, and it's real clear that you're committed. It's going to create really good policy. It's going to create a cultural shift, which I think is needed. I think the timing is right. It's going to increase even more transparency with you, which will include the strengthening of goodwill. And it will strengthen residential life in the city of Los Angeles, which I think is wonderful for you to do. I do want to encourage you that when you go to your key stakeholders, that you include non-traditional stakeholders, such as Mujeres de la Tierra, because your traditional stakeholders are the ones who've encouraged you to operate the way you have been. So if you do things the same way as you've always done, you're going to end up with the same result. I was listening to your conversation regarding the Watts situation, and it's good to go door to door. That's the best kind of outreach and engagement. But in the Latino community, which is what we are experts at, one thing we can claim that we do very good, it's not about just talking, but it's about listening to them. Also, Latinos sometimes don't respond to people in uniforms. They're reluctant. The authority, what are they really trying to say? Is this actually true? Why haven't we heard from them before? Why do we only hear from them when we have these kinds of, bad situations? So I would encourage you that you talk to organizations in those communities that know their constituency. For example, the churches are very powerful, both in the Latino and Black community and other communities, and they're in tune with those folks. You should have that priest or that preacher talking about what's gone on in their households with water, because if he's saying it, it's true, and it's reliable and credible. So that's all part of understanding how communities work. But I want to congratulate you. Culture shifts and culture changes are so hard, and I really want to honor Commissioner Funderburg for his tenacity and commitment as priority to deal with this. I also want to, disclose, I'm the chair of the Regional Water Quality Board and the chair of the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and we're having very similar conversations and discussions, and I know how challenging that is, because what happens is that we're looking at issues like this, and we need to start looking at like this. Because when you do that, a wonderful open world opens to you, and you do better business. I used to work for the Small Business Administration, and when banks used to tell me, we have to close some more banks. And I said, yeah, that's because you're not paying attention to who your new customers are. You've got to pay attention to your new customers' needs and wants and where they are in their lives. So thank you and congratulations. I'm so proud that this day has come at DWP, because it's a hard thing to do. We love to talk about equity. We'd like to talk about all those issues that seem to be very fair and reasonable, but it's very hard to act on them. So thank you so much for your time and effort.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Ms. Munoz. I want to thank you for your decades of public service and your leadership to both the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy and the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board, which agencies, to some degree, we also happen to deal with as well. So your comments are well taken, and we will keep you informed as well a little more often than a report back in 6 months, which I'm going to have a comment on in a second.
May I?
Commissioner Noonan.
So I equally am so excited about the direction that this department is moving towards and prioritizing this issue. And to be very candid, at the last board meeting, I actually could feel Commissioner Funderburg's frustration and feeling as if requests had been made and they had not been met in a timely manner. I say this with all due respect because if you look at even the information we covered just today, you are tackling on so many things that it's very difficult to follow up with requests. But given that, I did take the time to initiate a motion, which I would appreciate you considering. I move that the next agenda have placed on it an actionable item whereby the board may consider, discuss, and potentially adopt as a benchmark for reporting purposes the aggregate dollar amount and related percentage of DWP's total annual procurement that was annually awarded to women, minority, veteran, small business, LGBT, registered businesses as a combined group. To facilitate discussion at this time, I would also ask that the board receive a single-page, highly preliminary plan, and I think this is a fantastic first step, of milestones on a multi-year calendar basis that would indicate the systems, practices, and policies that would allow procurement dollars and percentages in each of these individual categories, the ones I referenced above, to be added at a later date to this benchmark report. And this can be done through largely automated means, as Gwen Williams is so doing now. And I think the purpose of creating this milestone schedule would assist the board in discussing at future meetings the challenges, the resources, the impediments to additional benchmark reporting of these categories against a backdrop of longer-term plans for modernizing DWP's procurement.
I'll have to go back and read the transcript for that.
Is there a way? I mean, it sounds something like I could support, but I would want to see it in writing. I think I appreciate.
What I would recommend is, rather than, if the commissioner would be comfortable with this, rather than move that based on the verbal recommendation for the next meeting, if that could be circulated so that commissioners would have an opportunity to review it.
Right.
And then people could at least have
it would give us an opportunity to respond.
It'd be more
as well.
understandable.
And also, I also want to take this opportunity to not take away Commissioner Funderburk's storm, because I really drafted this referring to the notes that were circulated from the April 19th meeting, where basically he is requesting very much what I just put in writing. But it does make sense to circulate it, and I appreciate all of you taking the time to read it and consider it.
Okay, good. Commissioner Funderburk, do you have any questions or comments on this item?
I guess, thank you. My mom always told me, you can never say thank you enough.
I'd take a raise if you're thinking about it.
When Marcy Edwards gave a speech to her alma mater at Laverne University for commencement, and I think I'm probably the only person who took the time to watch it. Maybe you did, Mel. But one of the things that she harped on in her advice to new graduates was that her success in management stemmed from giving her people the opportunity to fail, to pick themselves up, and to make corrections. And that Marcy, is what I want to thank you for. It's funny, the first time we had dinner with Marcy and Robert, kind of went through the same thing. So, but thank you. It's for my Uncle Jim, for my cousin Jay, for my cousin Mario, all of whom you've come to know, even though they're dead, and lived great lives, and touched the city of Los Angeles, but mostly for you, because I think that you have given of yourself much more than anybody gives you credit for. The reason that we have our Wall Street credit rating is your leadership. I can't say enough about the work that you do, and that folds down to the people that you brought on board. Jeff, I had to learn myself what my own biases were, and it was a hard time looking at myself, and I still have them. And I think that the work that you've shown in the midst of doing what you did with the DWP stats, with the business rollout program, just phenomenal. Amazing capacity. I wish if we had the capacity that you've shown, you know, we would be moving even faster than we are. And I want to commit to you that any burden or administrative burden that this poses by doing this program, which I know you're equally committed to, I'm going to commit personally to making sure that that doesn't get in the way of your function to doing what you need to do for the power and water system and to making the operation succeed. This came from, you know, I was initially Jessica Goodhart and her colleagues from Lane and Scope brought to attention the disparities, but the more I started looking at the numbers, the more I started saying that, you know, maybe the numbers will tell a different story, and we need to kind of tell the story about the great things that DWP is doing. Because DWP is a great organization. We do not get the credit that we deserve. I'm not going to blame the media because, you know, other people blame the media who are in the news right now. I don't want to be compared or even remotely, you know, mirrored with them. But we do not get the credit that we deserve. We have an incredible workforce. It's professional. It's something that I'm really proud to be a part of. And so I hope that all the staff look at this as an opportunity to not just shine a light. This isn't like the movie Spotlight. We're not here to on any witch hunt. We're here to show the great things that DWP is doing and to get them out to the public so that the public knows the great things that we're doing. If there are things that we need to remedy, we'll remedy and correct them. And thanks also to Tony Wilkinson and his sidekick, Jack Humphreyville, who are, you know, sometimes, well, Jack is at least sometimes critics, but the engagement's always welcome. And I hope that we can, through this program, make sure that the resources are dedicated to all parts of the city to make sure that all the ratepayers are engaged. This is ultimately about fairness that's implicated. And council, before I say this, before you tell me not to say anything about fairness and other things that we have to worry about, but this is about making the playing field even. You know, somebody made a comment at the last session, you know, well, you got everything in it except for the white males. Well, you know, I hate to be the, you know, proverbial, say 500-pound gorilla. I won't use another term, but this is about 100% of the city. This is not some diversity initiative where we're doing short-term things, quick fixes that are transactional. It's about systemic change. So I would just say that, again, thank you. I mean, I have some specific comments. I'd like the staff to acknowledge that the staff did bring this to the board's attention in the rate proceeding. I'd like to see some work done on tree canopies because that disparity is being corrected with a lot of DWP's help. You know, DWP's doing a great job of it, and I think that the mayor's office has done phenomenal job with city plans to follow up on a Million Trees initiative. And lastly, I think that the public deserves to a little more than just a board report in 6 months. I think that this should be on the agenda every month for the next 6 months. I think we don't need to spend as much time on it. I understand the importance of the power and balance markets. I don't understand them yet, General Manager. Under your tutelage, I'm sure we will all get to something close to the same page. I understand the challenges that the system's facing. It's under stress, and the power markets are changing. And the briefing was just a tip of the iceberg of what needs to be done. But I do think that it doesn't need, we don't need to spend 15 or 30 minutes on it, but I would like to see it on every single board agenda until this is launched. I think that the community needs to know about it, and we welcome any efforts to refine them. But and lastly, you. Nobody gives this guy credit either for the work that he's done. He could be spending time with grandkids. You know, he's made tons of whatever, at all these prominent things that he's been involved with his law practice. And I hope that I hope to make sure that you're given your due and recognized for the legacy, for what the battles you fought in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, so that the doors could open for people like me. I wouldn't be here without people like you. No. So that was a long thank you. I hope it met my mom's Green Book requirements, and thank you very much.
Well, those are tough comments to follow. Does anybody wish to follow them? Thank you, Bill. And congratulations on this achievement. And with that, if there are no further comments and nobody wishes to follow Bill's, which I certainly don't, Council?
At this point, we will recess into closed session to address the items on agenda item 31 and report any votes and final actions taken thereon.
Thank you.